Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 4 of What If I Was Reincarnated into Naruto as the blind shinobi of the main branch Hyuga clan. Let the tale begin. Chapter 91. A few hours ago in the morning, after Juryoku completed his training, a notification came from the system. Ding! Congratulations! On completing the issue, Fujitora template to 100%. Congratulations! The synthesis of Byakugans and Sharingans are completed and you have unlocked a new mystic eyes of death perception. After hearing this, Juryoku was completely stunned because he wasn't expecting this in the slightest. He thought he would get a Tensegan with maybe some mutated ability, but this was totally unexpected, even for him. How did this happen, system? I thought I would only get abilities from the Naruto world or the One Piece world, not from the Type Moon universe, said Juryoku. Host, you are forgetting something. The Naruto world also has such broken abilities, especially after the introduction of Otsutsuki gods and Shinjutsu. So, this is the Shinjutsu that I created for you as an effect of the mutation after combining Sharingan and Byakugan, replied the system. Dojutsu, Mystic Eyes of Death Perception. Type, Shinjutsu. Ability, grants user the ability to see death of everything that is killable. So will this Shinjutsu also have any other effects? Asked Juryoku. Now that's totally up to your intelligence and how you use this Shinjutsu to achieve more power, replied the system. You are right. I can't depend on you for everything, and I think I have plans on how to use these eyes to make myself even stronger than I currently am, said Juryoku. After this, Juryoku left in the direction that Pakken took him, accompanied by Team Guy. Seeing Juryoku open his eyes was a shocker for many present here because they knew that Juryoku gouged out his own eyes when he was 4 years old and destroyed them on the spot. But Neji knew that after killing all the elders of the Hyuga clan, Juryoku took all their Byakugan and left. What confused him, however, was that these eyes were not Byakugan but some other type. They were shining sky blue with a red color in the center. What kind of eyes are these, thought Neji. When Sasori looked into Juryoku's eyes, he froze for a second because, for that second, he felt as if he was looking at his own death, and in a sense, his intuition was absolutely correct, he was looking at death, after all. In his fear, Sasori controlled all those more than 100 puppets and attacked Juryoku from all directions, trying to kill him with whatever he could. Currently, in Juryoku's vision, everything he saw had a few red lines on them, which were the lines of death for each of these objects and persons. Seeing all the puppets coming in his direction, Juryoku moved gracefully and passed through those puppets. With minimal effort, he cut exactly at those red lines. For a swordsman like himself, doing this was easy. All the spectators who saw Juryoku moving with minimal movements but at fast speed felt as if he was dancing on the battlefield. Within 30 seconds, Juryoku passed through each of these puppets and continued walking as if nothing had happened. But soon, something that shocked everyone occurred. All those puppets started getting cracks on them, and each of them fell apart into fine pieces. Soon, those fine pieces also turned into dust. What is this? Did he use dust release or something? Asked Chiyo in confusion, looking at Shikamaru and others for an answer. Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji had a guess that it must be the ability of Juryoku's eye, but they decided to remain quiet and didn't speak a word about Juryoku's eyes. Shikamaru said, "We are also clueless like all of you." Sasori saw Juryoku easily destroying a move that he considered his trump card, the most powerful move in his arsenal. But Sasori knew that it was not the time to sulk over his destroyed puppets. Sasori said, "You may have destroyed all my puppets, but how will you survive a point-blank range attack of over more than 1,000 explosive tags?" After Sasori's voice fell, a puppet full of explosive tags emerged from the ground, right in front of Juryoku. As soon as Sasori made a hand seal, all the explosive tags inside the puppet ignited and exploded with a boom. In response to this explosion, Juryoku stood there calmly, his face serene because he could see a red line, which was the line of death of the ongoing explosion. Juryoku simply slashed the line of death, and the explosion, which had just started, vanished completely, as if someone had lit a firecracker, and it went foosh. What the, said Sasori with a shocked expression on his face. In his whole life, he had seen many things, but this was entirely different. If Juryoku had somehow absorbed the explosion, it would have been understandable, but it seemed as if he had just removed the explosion from existence. Juryoku didn't even slow down when the explosion started, he continued walking in Sasori's direction. What did you just do? Asked Sasori in fear. At this moment, he didn't even have a shred of resistance left in him, and he knew for sure that there was nothing he could do to win. Everything in this world has a beginning, and everything in this world dies at some point. Even this world will die eventually. I simply nullified your move and erased the existence of all your puppets, wiping them from existence forever, said Juryoku. You always kept your eyes closed when you first fought me. That means it's with your eyes that you're doing this, correct? Said Sasori. You could say that. Now you can die with peace of mind, said Juryoku. He slashed at the core of Sasori's puppet, erasing Sasori's core and soul from existence, achieving complete death for Sasori. Chapter 92. After killing Sasori, Juryoku turned around to face everyone, giving them a glimpse of his eyes. However, as soon as they saw Juryoku's eyes, he closed them again. This perplexed everyone present, and they were also shocked at how swiftly Juryoku had destroyed each and every one of Sasori's puppets and killed Sasori as if toying with him. Just after Juryoku finished killing Sasori, Naruto and Kakashi arrived and saw everyone in a state of shock. This confused them a bit, wondering what might have happened to cause such confusion among the group. Once both Kakashi and Naruto had returned, everyone also came back to their senses and suppressed the questions they wanted to ask Juryoku. Naruto placed Gaara's body on the ground, and like him, everyone remained silent, mourning Gaara's death. I failed, and I wasn't able to save him, said Naruto, clenching his fists and crying. There was nothing you could have done, it was the duty of us from Tsunade to protect our Kazekage, but we totally failed in doing so and lost him, said Chiyo while walking in the direction of Gaara. Now, the very least I can do for Tsunade is to return their Kazekage, said Chiyo while placing her hand on Gaara's stomach. What are you trying to do, you old woman, said Naruto in anger and frustration. He thought that Chiyo was just trying to console herself by attempting to heal Gaara. Chiyo didn't pay much attention to Naruto's words and turned towards Juryoku, saying, You are very powerful. I don't know what you did, but thank you very much for letting my grandson rest in peace. And now, I can also meet my grandson again soon. Juryoku simply nodded in response and didn't say anything. After that, Chiyo asked for Naruto's help to lend her some chakra. As Sakura had told Naruto to lend Chiyo chakra, he did just that. Afterward, Chiyo fell to the ground, and after a few hours, the rest of the Tsunade ninjas who were coming to aid in Kazekage's rescue arrived. When they got there, they were met with an unexpected surprise. Kazekage Gaara woke up. Seeing this, every Tsunade ninja present was overjoyed. But when they learned about Chiyo's death and her sacrifice to bring Gaara back to life, everyone felt sad. After his goal was achieved, Juryoku was ready to leave for Konoha. At this time, Gaara walked up to Juryoku and said, Thank you very much for coming to rescue me. You don't have to thank me for that. The main reason I came was because I myself have enmity with Akatsuki, replied Juryoku. Whatever your reasons may be, thank you very much, said Gaara. After that, Gaara had a talk with Naruto about their own matters, which Juryoku didn't even bother to listen to. He walked over to Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. I have a few things to take care of, so I should be leaving. We will meet again next time, said Juryoku. Shikamaru and the others nodded, but Ino stepped forward to Juryoku and said, Promise me that next time we meet, you will take me on a date. I promise that the next time we meet, I will take you on a date, said Juryoku. By the way, why did you close your eyes? Your eyes are so beautiful, said Ino. I can't keep them open for too long. You can think of it as a similar case to Kakashi with his Sharingan, said Juryoku. Do they constantly consume your chakra when they are open? Asked Shikamaru. No, it's not exactly the same as Kakashi. My eyes are quite different. If I keep them open for too long, there is a high chance that I will go completely blind, or I might go mad. But since I have a huge amount of mental energy, I won't go mad. Instead, I would lose my eyesight, which I wouldn't want after getting my eyes back after so long. This problem isn't unsolvable, and I have awakened this ability recently. That's why I am not able to control it properly. Once I achieve perfect control over it, I can activate and deactivate the ability of my eyes whenever I want. Although there will be a restriction on the time duration for how long I can use the ability of the eyes, I can keep my normal eyes open, just not my mystic eye of death, replied Juryoku. Finally, Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji learned the name of Juryoku's eye. By the way, did you see me? Asked Ino. Yes, of course, that's why I turned towards you all after killing Sasori, said Juryoku. So, how do I look? Asked Ino. What should I say? You're different from what I imagined. I mean, you look good, but I never thought you would look so gorgeous that I almost forgot to close my eyes, said Juryoku with a laugh. You bastard, making me nervous all the time for nothing, said Ino, trying to be angry but smiling after getting praised for her beauty by Juryoku. What a drag. Would you both stop this? We're all single, you know, said Shikamaru. It's not my problem, and anyway, I think you've already found love, Juryoku replied before floating into the air. Okay, we'll meet again later. With that, Juryoku soon disappeared into the clouds, and with the rumbling of thunder, he was gone. I love seeing Juryoku like this, said Ino. Yeah, it almost seems like he's not the same Juryoku who never even smiled once, added Shikamaru. After that, Shikamaru and the others left for Sunagakure, from where they would be heading to Konoha. Chapter 93, I hope they're all doing well, Tsunade said as she gazed out of the window. Juryoku is with them, so they should be fine, replied Shizune, holding Tauntaun. I hope so, Tsunade murmured. Are you doubting my strength? A voice suddenly came from behind them. Tsunade turned around to find Juryoku standing there. You've returned. Did everything go well? She asked. From my point of view, everything went well, but if you want all the details, you'll have to wait for your teams to return, Juryoku replied. Tsunade found this reasonable and said, okay, and for your help, Konoha will pay you the remuneration for this as an S-rank mission. No need. Keep this off the records, even my arrival in Konoha. Keep it off the record, Juryoku insisted. Why? Tsunade inquired. The reason is quite simple. I just don't want anyone to know that I came to Konoha. And I fought Akatsuki for my own reasons, not for Konoha, Juryoku explained. Tsunade found this odd but shrugged it off, proceeding to ask Juryoku, so what are your further plans? What are you going to do? First, I will fulfill some promises that I made to a few people and creatures, and then I will destroy Akatsuki, Juryoku declared. Okay, then we will meet again sometime, Tsunade acknowledged. With a nod, Juryoku left the Hokage's office. After Juryoku's departure, Shizune said, Lady Tsunade, now that you know everyone who went on the Kazekage rescue mission is fine, you can finally complete all the pending paperwork. You've been neglecting those papers just because you were feeling restless. Tsunade sighed and said, No, today is the day for the celebration, so we will continue this tomorrow. Not at all. You have to complete it today, or else you won't even get a single drop of wine to drink, Shizune insisted. Dejected, Tsunade had to get back to work. Just as she started working, after 10 minutes, Jiraiya arrived in the Hokage's office. Tsunade, I felt that Juryoku arrived in Konoha, Jiraiya stated. Yes, he just left a few minutes ago, Tsunade replied. At that moment, Umbu Ninja Yamato arrived and said, Hokage-sama, a big incident has occurred. Just a minute after Juryoku left the Hokage's office. We are living like this just because of that brat Juryoku, Hamura exclaimed. Yeah, we should have had his whole family killed, added Koharu. Who knew he would become this powerful that not even Jiraiya could defeat him? Now, we have to live in fear of being killed by him, lamented Hamura. And let's not forget, even the Jokin of the Fire Country is said to be in love with him. That means we can't even touch him politically, Koharu added. Do you two always talk like this? A voice suddenly pierced their conversation. Hearing the voice, both Koharu and Hamura felt a chill run down their spines. They stiffly turned in the direction from which the voice came and saw Juryoku standing there. Wah, wah, wah. Koharu was so filled with fear that she couldn't even complete a single word. Something stuck in your throat? Juryoku taunted as he walked in the direction of Koharu and Hamura. Both Hamura and Koharu collapsed to the ground. Hamura managed to shout, "Is someone there? Quickly, Juryoku has entered our clan's land. No one will come. I've incapacitated them, and they'll be sleeping for a while. As for you, well, you'll be resting eternally," Juryoku declared. You can't do this to us. There will be severe consequences if you do, Koharu protested. And what exactly might those be? Rebellion from your respective clans? Let them try. I'll be more than happy to deal with them on behalf of the Fire Country, Juryoku replied with a sinister smile. Koharu and Hamura wore expressions of horror because they knew that this wasn't an idle threat. The Fire Country wouldn't stand by if there was instability in Konoha, and now that they had Juryoku, they could officially eliminate any threats that emerged in the village. I won't waste my time on both of you. You were already marked for death when I attempted to kill you. It's your good fortune that you've managed to live this long after being targeted by me, Juryoku declared. Juryoku increased the gravity around both of them, making it difficult for them to even sit. He continued, I wanted to tell you to be good in your next life, but you won't get that chance. Juryoku then opened his mystic eyes of death perception, and red lines appeared on both Hamura and Koharu. With a swift slash, he killed them both, erasing their souls from existence, ensuring they could never reincarnate. After killing both of them, Juryoku left and went to the Yamanaka Flowers flower shop to buy flowers to place on the graves of his parents. Ino's mother was at the shop, and she was surprised to see Juryoku. Chapter 94, Juryoku, when did you arrive in Konoha? Asked Ino's mother. Just today. Now I am going to visit my parents' grave, that's why I came to get a few flowers, said Juryoku. I'm sorry, said Ino's mother, apologizing. No need to be sorry. It's just that I came to Konoha, so I thought I should visit my parents' grave because I have a few things to do after this, and maybe I won't be able to meet them for a long time, said Juryoku. After that, Ino's mother gave a few white flowers to Juryoku. While giving the flowers to him, Ino's mother said, Your parents must feel proud when they see you from heaven. Juryoku nodded and said, I hope so. Then Juryoku continued, Okay, we will meet again some other day. I should also arrive in Konoha the day after tomorrow morning. You went with her on the mission? Asked Ino's mother. Yes, when she comes, you can ask her for the details, said Juryoku. That's good, and here I was thinking that Ino wouldn't be able to meet you, said Ino's mother. After talking with Ino's mother, Juryoku left and soon he reached the graves of his parents. Surprisingly, the graves of his parents were cleaned. Juryoku then placed flowers on the graves and stood there silently, reminiscing about the journey he had taken since his birth. Juryoku's presence did not go unnoticed, and it was seen by one of the Hyuga clan members. He immediately ran to inform Hayashi about this. In Hayashi's house. What? You mean Juryoku has come to the Hyuga clan graveyard? Asked Hayashi. Yes, I saw him with my own eyes, said the Hyuga ninja who had seen Juryoku. After getting the confirmation, Hayashi immediately went to the Hyuga clan graveyard. Juryoku was standing quietly in front of his parents' graves. This silence was broken by Hayashi's voice. The new Hyuga elders wanted to move your parents' graves from the Hyuga clan graveyard, but I did not allow it because they don't know the extent of your strength, but I do. You did well. If my parents were disturbed after death, then maybe there would have been a second bloodbath in the Hyuga clan, said Juryoku. Hayashi wasn't surprised by this reply from Juryoku because he knew well that Juryoku would really have taken such drastic action. So, what are your future plans? Do you plan to reclaim the Hyuga name? Asked Hayashi. No, I don't have such plans. The only reason why I use the Hyuga title for official purposes is because it was the name given to me by my parents, said Juryoku. So you're not willing to return to the Hyuga clan? Asked Hayashi. I don't think so, but why are you suddenly asking me this? Have you forgotten that I am the one who killed your father? Said Juryoku. Not at all, I still remember it. But I also remember that because of my father's actions, you lost your parents. And once someone said you can only find peace after you let go of the hate, said Hayashi. Are you talking about the fourth Hokage or his son, Uzumaki Naruto? Said Juryoku. Yes, it was the fourth Hokage who said this, said Hayashi, then asked Juryoku, and do you know about Uzumaki Naruto being fourth Hokage's son? Almost every jonin who has seen the fourth Hokage personally can guess that Uzumaki Naruto is his son, said Juryoku. And someone like me, who knows so much about Akatsuki, wouldn't be unaware of this, added Juryoku. Till now, you haven't completed your revenge. Are you really going to kill the former Konoha council elders? Asked Hayashi. You are wrong, my revenge has been completed, said Juryoku. But Hayashi wanted to say something, and then when he connected the dots of Juryoku's arrival in Konoha and his sudden visit to his parents' grave, he didn't ask anything further. Okay then, it's time for me to leave, said Juryoku and disappeared from the place. Sigh, I did my best to call him back to the Hyuga clan, but it seems we Hyuga can't have someone like that god of Shinobi, as the Uchiha had Uchiha Madara, the Senju had Senju Hashirama, and the Sarutobi clan had Sarutobi Hiruzen, said Hayashi to himself while looking in the direction of his father's grave. At present, in the Hokage's office. Hokage-sama, this is not good. Both Hamura and Koharu elders were killed, said Yamato. What? Said Tsunade in shock while standing up. When did this happen, and who did it? Asked Tsunade. Just a few minutes ago, they were killed in their house in the Mitokado clan compound. We don't exactly know who did it, but Juryoku was also moving in that direction. However, the way they were killed is not the style of Juryoku, said Yamato. Come on, let's go to the Hamura clan compound, said Tsunade and left the Hokage's office with Jiraiya. Chapter 95, Tsunade and Jiraiya arrived at the Mitokado clan compound, only to find two dusty lumps where Hamura and Koharu were presumed to have perished. So, you're suggesting these two dusty lumps are the remains of Hamura and Koharu? Tsunade inquired. Yes, and what's even more puzzling is the presence of a suppression mark around their bodies, indicating they were subjected to a potent aura or gravitational force, which aligns with Juryoku's style. But he's known as a sword user, and this method is completely different, explained Yamato. I see, perhaps he's altered his fighting technique during his 3 years of training. We haven't witnessed his combat skills during this time, and aside from him, no one seems to have any motive to kill these two. Besides, he was also in Konoha, added Jiraiya. We'll uncover his new fighting methods once Team Kakashi arrives. For now, let's search for Juryoku within Konoha, Tsunade suggested. I've already dispatched Umbu teams to locate Juryoku, Yamato reported. Good, Tsunade nodded in agreement. At that very moment, an Umbu ninja swiftly arrived at the scene, dropping to his knees in front of Tsunade. With utmost respect, he addressed Tsunade, Hokage-sama, we have just spotted Juryoku at the Hyuga clan graveyard, standing before his parents' resting places. Tsunade acknowledged the report with a decisive nod. Her eyes were focused, and her determination clear as she replied, then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Without hesitation, she darted off, heading in the direction of the Hyuga clan grounds. Meanwhile, within the Hyuga clan graveyard, Hayashi had been preparing to depart when he sensed a group of individuals approaching. Reacting swiftly, he activated his Byakugan, allowing him to see Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the Umbu ninjas steadily drawing closer. Hayashi halted in his tracks, waiting patiently for their arrival. As Tsunade and Jiraiya reached Hayashi, the Hokage wasted no time in getting to the point. She inquired, "Where is Juryoku? Did you witness him departing from this place?" With a solemn expression, Hayashi replied. He came here to pay his respects at his parents' graves and left just a few minutes ago. Tsunade turned her attention to Yamato and issued a directive, her voice firm and resolute. Yamato, go search for him and determine whether he is still within Konoha or has left the village. Yamato nodded and departed alongside the Umbu ninjas, vanishing into the shadows with a series of swift movements, leaving behind only the faint sound of rustling leaves. Returning her focus to Hayashi, Tsunade faced him directly and inquired, her eyes probing for more information. Did Juryoku reveal anything of significance during your conversation? Hayashi, with a solemn expression, recounted the details of his encounter with Juryoku. Yes, when I confronted him about his presence in Konoha, I initially believed he had come to pay his respects to his deceased parents. However, as our conversation progressed, he disclosed that he had fulfilled his revenge. That's when I suspected he might have already eliminated Elder Koharu and Elder Hamura. I was in the process of confirming my suspicions when you arrived. Curiosity flickered in Hayashi's eyes as he sought more information. By the way, what transpired to raise the alarm for you, Hokage-sama, and the other Umbu ninjas? In light of all the evidence, it's highly likely that Juryoku has indeed taken the lives of Koharu and Hamura, Tsunade remarked with a heavy sigh. Regret weighed on Tsunade's words as she continued, amidst the chaos of the Kazekage's capture by the Akatsuki, I completely overlooked the looming threat of Juryoku's revenge against Koharu and Hamura. I should have been more vigilant upon his return to Konoha. Jiraiya offered a reassuring perspective, his voice filled with understanding. There's no need for self-blame, Tsunade. You couldn't have foreseen this, and there's no point in dwelling on it now. What's evident is that his power has grown substantially, possibly even surpassing his strength from 3 years ago. Especially now that he's mastered Sage Mode to perfection, his abilities are beyond our imagination. Curiosity gripped Jiraiya, and he inquired further, did he say anything else to you before departing? Tsunade took a moment to recall and then responded, yes, as he left, he mentioned, I have promises to fulfill to certain individuals and creatures. Upon hearing this, Jiraiya's expression shifted to one of solemn concern, and he probed, are you absolutely certain he used those words? Tsunade affirmed, puzzled by Jiraiya's reaction. Without a doubt. Why the concern? Jiraiya's voice grew grave as he elaborated, aren't you forgetting something? When I managed to save Koharu and Hamura, Juryoku issued a warning to the 2 great sage toads. He threatened to annihilate their Mount Myaboku and end my life if they didn't return Koharu and Hamura to him. While he promised not to kill me after your intervention, he never vowed to forsake his commitments to the 2 great sage toads. Jiraiya continued, his tone heavy with implications. In the statement he made to you, he specifically mentioned creatures, and in this context, creatures most likely refers to the toads. Tsunade's concern mirrored Jiraiya's as she questioned, so, what's your plan now? The alliance with Mount Myaboku held significant importance for Konoha, and the situation had grown increasingly complex. Chapter 96. The first order of business is to summon the 2 great sage toads and apprise them of this situation, including the potential threat Juryoku poses to Mount Myaboku, declared Jiraiya with determination. Tsunade nodded in agreement, her fingers massaging her temples and a show of the mounting concern weighing on her. Indeed, that's the best course of action. If Mount Myaboku requires aid, Konoha will stand by our ally. Observing Tsunade's demeanor, Jiraiya couldn't help but wonder if she had any regrets about healing Juryoku. He broached the sensitive topic, asking, are you second-guessing your decision to heal Juryoku? Tsunade responded with candor, dispelling any notions of remorse. No, I don't regret healing him. Even if I hadn't, Juryoku possesses a unique constitution that would have allowed him to recover on his own. It's just that dealing with him now that we know the extent of his power is a major headache. Seeking to alleviate her worries, Jiraiya reassured her. Don't worry, the 2 great sage toads are bound to have a solution. Jiraiya performed the summoning technique, and after a brief moment enveloped in a cloud of smoke, Gamabunta materialized before them. Just as Jiraiya began to speak, he he abruptly halted, his words tapering off when he realized that Gamabunta had appeared instead of the two great sage toads. Surprised, Jiraiya questioned, "Gamabunta, what are you doing here?" "I summoned the two great sage toads." Gamabunta offered an explanation. "The two great sage toads have been called by the great toad sage, so they went to him. I've taken their place for now." Jiraiya absorbed this information, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I see. If the great toad sage has summoned them, then something of utmost importance must be afoot." Following their conversation in Konoha, Gamabunta departed with a billowing cloud of smoke, leaving behind the village. In the serene realm of Mount Myaboku, Gamamaru was seated within a shallow pool of water, flanked on either side by Fukasaku and Shima. The hall they were in had gathered a multitude of toads, and soon after Gamabunta's arrival from Konoha, Fukasaku was the first to speak, addressing their Great Lord Elder. "Now that all the important toads have assembled, Great Lord Elder, could you please enlighten us regarding the reason you've summoned us here?" Fukasaku's voice held a sense of urgency. Gamamaru, typically known for his sleepiness and forgetfulness, was unusually alert at this moment. His eyes focused with intensity as he began to explain, "I've called you all here because I had a vision of our Mount Myaboku's future in a dream, and it was nightmarish. In my vision, a man was mercilessly slaughtering all the toads, and I could only see one thing clearly as it ended: his eyes. They were sky blue with a crimson radiance in the center, and it spelled death for anyone who dared to stand in his way. How is it possible? I can't fathom who we might have antagonized to the point where no one could stand against such a formidable adversary," Fukasaku pondered aloud. Gamamaru recollected another crucial detail from his vision. "There's one more thing I recall now. This person exhibited signs of utilizing the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest." Fukasaku interjected with historical knowledge, "But it's been centuries since anyone has harnessed the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest. Senju Hashirama did venture to learn sage mode, but he eventually developed his own unique variation. It certainly wasn't rooted in the Shikatsu forest." Shima proposed a course of action. "Perhaps we should dispatch someone to the Shikatsu forest and gather information about this individual." Fukasaku expressed skepticism. "It's a fruitless endeavor. That old slug will never divulge any information willingly." Gamamaru and Fukasaku found common ground in another approach. Gamamaru stated, "Fukasaku is correct. Rather than sending toads to the Shikatsu forest, summon Jiraiya here. There's only one person who has a contract with Katsuyu, and that individual is the 5th Hokage, Tsunade. Let Jiraiya investigate this matter, determine if we have any grievances with this person. Seek clarity on all fronts through Jiraiya." Fukasaku concurred and committed to taking action. "You're absolutely right, Great Lord Elder. I'll summon Jiraiya immediately and inquire about this situation. Additionally, Jiraiya was summoning me for some reason, so we should hear what he has to say." Gamamaru conveyed his agreement through a nod. Fukasaku employed the reverse summoning technique to call upon Jiraiya, who promptly materialized in the midst of the assembled toads in Mount Myaboku. The sight of so many toads gathered in one place left Jiraiya bewildered, but he had an inkling that something of great significance was unfolding or had already transpired. "Jiraiya, my boy, you were trying to summon me earlier. What's the matter?" Fukasaku inquired, his toad-like countenance showing a mix of curiosity and concern. Jiraiya wasted no time in getting to the heart of the matter. "Do you all remember the boy named Juryoku?" Shima was the first to respond, her voice tinged with recognition. "You mean that boy who bested you even at the pinnacle of your strength, even with our assistance?" Jiraiya confirmed her words with a somber nod. "Yes." Fukasaku, his toad fists tightly clenched, inquired further, his anger evident. "The same boy who took Gamaken's life?" Jiraiya's voice quivered with sorrow as he admitted, "Yes." Fukasaku pressed for more details. "So, what about him?" Jiraiya explained, his voice filled with concern. "You all recall when he demanded that you return 2 Konoha elders to him, but you refused. He vowed to destroy Mount Myaboku as a consequence, and I'm afraid his threat is on the verge of becoming a reality. He possesses the strength to carry out such an attack. Chapter 97, Jiraiya, my boy, I understand that he's formidable, but it's hard to believe he poses such an immense threat to our Mount Maiboku. We're not that feeble, Shima asserted, her tone reflecting her confidence. Fukasaku, however, interjected, addressing Jiraiya, hold on a moment, ma. Jiraiya boy, tell us, has Juryoku formed a contract with Katsuyu the Slug? Jiraiya confirmed with a nod, yes. Fukasaku's concern deepened, and he posed a crucial question. But isn't the summoning contract usually held by the 5th Hokage? How did Juryoku manage to secure a contract with Katsuyu? How did such a vital scroll fall into the hands of an enemy of Konoha? In response, Jiraiya provided a detailed account of the circumstances in which Tsunade had traded the summoning contract scroll for his own life. Fukasaku sighed deeply, acknowledging the complexity of the situation. Well, it seems we have little choice. Recalling Gamamaru's prophecy about the attacker possessing distinctive eyes, Fukasaku sought further clarification. Juryoku is blind, correct? He has no eyes, isn't that so? Jiraiya hesitated before responding, I can't say for certain. During our investigation, we discovered that Juryoku had taken eyes from the Hyuga clan. So, there's a possibility that he transplanted those eyes and now possesses the ability to see. Jiraiya, my boy, I need you to conduct a thorough investigation within Konoha and gather any information related to Juryoku, Fukasaku instructed, his tone filled with seriousness. Jiraiya nodded in acknowledgement and then broached a question that had been weighing on his mind since his arrival at Mount Maiboku. By the way, 2 great sage toads, why have you and so many toads gathered here? Fukasaku proceeded to explain to Jiraiya the prophetic vision Gamamaru had witnessed in his dream, providing all the details and forebodings it contained. As Jiraiya absorbed the dire implications of the prophecy, his countenance grew increasingly solemn. Fukasaku and Shima could sense his unease, prompting Fukasaku to inquire further, is there something else you know? Jiraiya nodded gravely as he replied, the description you provided about the assailant aligns perfectly with Juryoku. His formidable strength makes an attack on Mount Maiboku plausible, and he has indeed mastered the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest. The only missing piece of the puzzle is confirmation regarding his eyes. Fukasaku and Shima exchanged knowing glances, acknowledging that Jiraiya's concerns were well-founded. It was becoming increasingly evident that their actions to save the Konoha Council elders had potentially been a grave mistake. Facing the 2 great sage toads, Jiraiya delivered additional information. By the way, 2 great sage toads, Tsunade expressed Konoha's willingness to support Mount Maiboku and fulfill the duties of our alliance. Fukasaku promptly dismissed the proposal, his determination unwavering. Please convey our gratitude to the 5th Hokage, but we won't require a ninja army. Allowing such a force into our realm would risk revealing the location of Mount Maiboku to those who shouldn't know. Jiraiya nodded in understanding. Understood. I will make it my priority to confirm whether Juryoku possesses those eyes or not. Once I have verified the situation, I will promptly inform you. Fukasaku and Shima nodded in agreement as Jiraiya prepared to depart Mount Maiboku. Back in Konoha, as Jiraiya reappeared, he was met by Tsunade, who was waiting for him. Surprised, he greeted her, Whoa, Tsunade. You're still here? Tsunade responded with a determined expression, of course. I wanted to hear firsthand what the 2 great sage toads had to say. Jiraiya proceeded to recount his conversation with the 2 great sage toads on Mount Maiboku, particularly focusing on the issue of Juryoku's eyes. Eyes? Tsunade pondered for a moment. Yes, amidst the rush to complete my work, I forgot to observe him closely. But now that I think about it, I did notice some peculiarities in his eye sockets. I wasn't able to definitively confirm the details, though. Jiraiya proposed their next course of action. All right. Once Kakashi and his team arrive, we'll gather more detailed information about Juryoku, especially regarding his encounters with the Akatsuki members. Tsunade concurred with a nod and left the scene, heading back to her duties in the Hokage's office, well aware that they had a pressing situation to address. After 2 long days, Kakashi and his team finally returned to Konoha. They made their way to the Hokage's office to report the successful completion of their mission. As Kakashi entered the office, he found Tsunade engrossed in her paperwork. Naruto was about to speak up, but Sakura quickly intervened, recognizing the Hokage's ongoing tasks. Aware of their arrival, Tsunade acknowledged them, saying, "I understand that you must be tired after such a lengthy journey, but please bear with me for a few more minutes." She then instructed her assistant, Shizune, "Please have someone summon Jiraiya." Shizune promptly responded, "Of course, Lady Tsunade," and swiftly left the Hokage's office. Within a mere 10 minutes, Jiraiya had arrived and was present inside the Hokage's office, ready to hear their report. "Now, please proceed with your mission report," Tsunade requested, giving Kakashi the floor. Kakashi nodded and began his detailed account of everything he had witnessed during the mission. He meticulously described their experiences, including their encounters with Akatsuki members and their interactions with Juryoku. Sakura followed with her own account, focusing on her intense battle with Sasori and the crucial role Juryoku played in the fight, ultimately defeating Sasori. As they listened to the report, both Tsunade and Jiraiya exchanged surprised glances. It was not only the confirmation that Juryoku had eyes that startled them but also the extraordinary display of strength that Juryoku had exhibited during the battle. The revelation left them both deeply intrigued and concerned about the implications of Juryoku's newfound power. Chapter 98. After Sakura had concluded her part of the mission report, Tsunade took a deep breath and directed her attention to Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji. She asked them directly, "Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, you 3 had an opportunity to converse with Juryoku, correct? Is there any significant information he may have shared with you?" Shikamaru glanced at his comrades, Choji and Ino, before responding respectfully, "Lady Hokage, we did indeed have a conversation with Juryoku. He did mention his eyes. According to him, his eyes resulted from the fusion of 10 pairs of Sharingan and 10 pairs of Byakugan. He referred to them as the mystic eyes of death perception." Shikamaru went on, however, he didn't divulge any specific details about the abilities of these eyes. Tsunade acknowledged their report with a nod. She had a degree of trust in Shikamaru for most matters, but when it came to Juryoku, she held reservations. Her intuition was correct. Shikamaru did possess knowledge about the abilities of Juryoku's eyes but chose not to share it, focusing instead on information that wouldn't be detrimental to Juryoku or raise suspicions. Kakashi added another crucial observation to the discussion. It's worth noting that despite having these eyes, Juryoku doesn't keep them open continuously. He only activated them once during his battle with Sasori. For the rest of the time, he kept his eyes closed. Jiraiya pondered Kakashi's observation and ventured an analysis. It appears that he can't sustain the use of his eyes for an extended period. There may be a limit to how long he can keep them open. Kakashi concurred, drawing a parallel to his own situation. As Shikamaru mentioned, these eyes are a mutation resulting from the combination of Sharingan and Byakugan. It's probable that, much like how my Sharingan rejects my body and I need to keep them closed, Juryoku's body may have a similar reaction. He keeps his eyes closed to prevent any adverse effects or consequences. Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama, ever since we arrived, it seems like you both have been preoccupied with something, particularly regarding Juryoku. Did something happen while we were away? Kakashi inquired, sensing an underlying tension. Naruto, observing Jiraiya's demeanor, chimed in, "Yeah, Pervy Sage, you've seemed quite uneasy since we got back." It wasn't just Naruto. The expressions on the faces of all those who had returned from the mission clearly conveyed their curiosity and concern. Tsunade decided to address their questions directly, her voice steady and grave. "Koharu and Hamura have been killed." Kakashi, like the others, was taken aback by the shocking revelation. "But how is that possible? Elder Koharu and Hamura were under tight security. Juryoku returned to Konoha 2 days ago after successfully completing his mission with you all," Tsunade explained, her tone heavy with regret. "Initially, I believed he had come to report the mission's success. However, it turns out he was here to assassinate Koharu and Hamura. If that were the extent of it, I might have disregarded it as an unfortunate twist to maintain a good relation with Juryoku. However, the situation is far more dire. Most likely, Juryoku is planning an attack on Mount Maiboku. The news of Juryoku's actions didn't come as a shock to anyone regarding his involvement in Koharu and Hamura's deaths. They were well aware of the long-standing animosity between Juryoku, Koharu, and Hamura. None of them believed anyone could stop Juryoku from exacting his revenge on those two, except for the Hokage. However, the revelation of Juryoku's potential attack on Mount Maiboku was an unexpected twist for Kakashi, Might Guy, and Sakura, who understood the significance of Mount Maiboku to Konoha. Naruto, on the other hand, fell into deep thought. He muttered, "Mount Maiboku. I think I've heard of that place before." Sakura couldn't help but roll her eyes at his momentary lapse in memory. "You moron! It's the very place where you summon your toads." Naruto's eyes widened as he recollected. "Oh, right! I remember now." His expression shifted from confusion to anger, his voice filled with frustration. "But seriously, what's wrong with this guy Juryoku? I thought he might have changed over the years, and I was even grateful to him for helping us on this mission. But why would he want to attack Mount Maiboku? What kind of grudge does he have against the peaceful toads? First, he didn't save Grandpa Third Hokage, even though he had the strength to do it. Then he killed so many people in Konoha for revenge, and now he's targeting Mount Maiboku." A heavy silence hung in the room after Naruto's passionate outburst. They all recognized Naruto's unwavering commitment to his unique brand of peace, one built upon forgiveness and understanding. However, they also understood that not everyone shared the same ideology, and Juryoku's thirst for revenge for his parents' deaths was evidence of that divergence in beliefs. Jiraiya stepped in to diffuse the tension, addressing Naruto calmly. "Naruto, I understand how you feel, but this is a matter we'll discuss on another occasion." Turning his attention to Tsunade, Jiraiya proposed a course of action. "Tsunade, I'll summon Elder Fukasaku and immediately inform him about Juryoku." Tsunade nodded in agreement, and Jiraiya proceeded to use the summoning technique. In a swirling cloud of smoke, Fukasaku materialized within Tsunade's office. "Jiraiya, my boy, you've called me here, which suggests you've uncovered something new," Fukasaku observed, his sage-like demeanor exuding wisdom and curiosity. Chapter 99. Yes, we have acquired new information about Juryoku, Jiraiya began, summarizing the details he had gathered from Kakashi and the others. He outlined Juryoku's involvement in the mission, including his capabilities and the revelation that he possessed unique eyes. Fukasaku, the sage, questioned, "So, this means Juryoku possesses these eyes? Do they match the description of the eyes in the prophecy of the Grand Elder?" Jiraiya confirmed, "Yes, they are an exact match." Fukasaku acknowledged the importance of this revelation, expressing gratitude to Jiraiya. "I see. Thank you, Jiraiya. Your information will undoubtedly prove valuable when we confront Juryoku." Tsunade, feeling a deep sense of responsibility, stood up and addressed Fukasaku. "I am deeply sorry, Sage Fukasaku. It's due to my past decisions that you now face such a predicament, and I have inadvertently put the position of Mount Maiboku, our long-standing allies, at risk." Fukasaku reassured Tsunade with understanding, "You need not apologize, Hokage. Jiraiya has kept me informed about the circumstances that led to your decisions. I don't hold you accountable in any way." Tsunade expressed her gratitude. "Thank you for your understanding. Please, let us know if there is any way in which Konoha can assist." Fukasaku declined the offer, showing great confidence in Mount Maiboku's abilities. "There's no need for that. We are capable of handling this situation, and your willingness to offer help is more than enough." Jiraiya raised a concern. "I've been wondering from the start, wouldn't Lady Katsuyu be compelled to reveal the location of Mount Maiboku to Juryoku?" Fukasaku dispelled the worry. "No, she won't. Lady Katsuyu will never divulge the location of Mount Maiboku. From the very beginning, the three sage places decided that we would never disclose our hidden locations or paths to anyone. Consider it an unbreakable oath. I'm relieved to hear that. Jiraiya acknowledged Fukasaku's reassurance. With that, Fukasaku departed Konoha in a swirl of smoke, leaving the village to contend with the impending threat. In the daimyo mansion of the Fire Country, Juryoku and Shiromi, Joken, engaged in a conversation about their relationship and Juryoku's intentions. I didn't expect Ino to approve of our relationship, Shiromi remarked. Juryoku raised an eyebrow in curiosity. And why is that? Shiromi explained, the first time I met her, she seemed possessive about you. She even challenged me, claiming that it was a competition for your affection. However, you made it clear that you would only accept both of our love or none at all. Juryoku smiled at the memory of that moment. Shiromi then shifted the conversation to a more serious topic. Are you truly planning to attack Mount Maiboku? Consider the consequences. They've been long-standing allies with Konoha. Doing this might sever your ties with Konoha permanently. Juryoku acknowledged the potential repercussions but remained resolute. I'm aware of that, but they meddled in matters they shouldn't have. They ignored my warnings, thinking themselves invulnerable. Now, they'll pay the price for their arrogance. Concerned, Shiromi inquired further, but annihilating all of Mount Maiboku, wouldn't that be excessive? Juryoku's response was measured and uncertain. It depends on my mood. I may decide to spare some, or I might decimate the entire Mount Maiboku and be done with it. As Juryoku concluded his conversation with Shiromi, he sensed the sensation of being reverse summoned by Katsuyu. He informed Shiromi, it appears Lady Katsuyu is summoning me, which suggests something important. I'll have to leave for now. Shiromi nodded in understanding and replied, of course, you should go. With that acknowledgement, Juryoku vanished in a swirl of smoke, leaving Shiromi behind. In Shikatsu Forest, Juryoku appeared after being summoned by Katsuyu, but he sensed not only Katsuyu but also Tsunade present. Lady Katsuyu, did you summon me for something important? Juryoku inquired. Katsuyu responded, yes, Lady Tsunade wished to meet with you, and I also have matters to discuss with you. That's why I called you here. Juryoku nodded in acknowledgement and awaited further dialogue, allowing either Tsunade or Katsuyu to begin the conversation. Tsunade wasted no time, getting straight to the point. Tell me, did you kill Hamura and Koharu? She asked. Juryoku replied without hesitation, of course, I did. You must have already reached that conclusion after your investigations. As expected, Tsunade acknowledged, pressing on with her questions. Are you planning to attack Mount Maiboku? Juryoku confirmed his intentions. Oh, so you figured it out. Yes, I will attack Mount Maiboku and will commence the search soon. Tsunade questioned the motive behind this decision, puzzled by the severity of his actions. But they didn't have any major enmity with you. They merely refused to hand over Koharu and Hamura. Is this small reason enough to warrant an attack on Mount Maiboku? Juryoku defended his stance, explaining, to you, it may seem like a minor issue, but revenge was my priority at the time, and they obstructed my path. I warned them, but they didn't heed my words. For that, they will pay the price. They have confidence in their strength, so let's see just how formidable they truly are and how much strength they can muster to face me. Tsunade made an offer to Juryoku, attempting to find a resolution to the impending conflict. She proposed, how about this, I will absolve you of any charges related to the deaths of Koharu and Hamura. Furthermore, I will revoke your expulsion from Konoha, allowing you to live happily with Ino. In return, all I ask is that you refrain from attacking Mount Maiboku. As Hokage, I have the authority to make this happen. Her offer hung in the air, waiting for Juryoku's response. Chapter 100, Juryoku responded firmly, initially, I had the same thought, which is why I attempted to reconcile with all of you. However, I realized that changing my convictions at this point would be pointless. I've always followed my own path, guided by my beliefs. Suddenly altering that would serve no purpose. So, even if it means irreversibly severing my ties with you all, I don't care. I will most certainly proceed with the attack on Mount Maiboku. Tsunade sought one last reassurance, asking, "You truly won't reconsider?" Juryoku's silence spoke volumes, conveying his unyielding determination to press forward with his plans to attack Mount Maiboku. Turning to Katsuyu, Tsunade questioned, "Are you genuinely alright with this?" Katsuyu responded, "Lady Tsunade, you are well aware that I am but a summoned creature, incapable of interfering in my summoner's personal life or his personal vendettas." Tsunade felt utterly defeated, realizing that she had exhausted all avenues in her attempt to persuade Juryoku to reconsider. Katsuyu shifted her attention to Juryoku and shared her concerns, saying, "I understand your grudge against Mount Maiboku, and I'm not asking you to abandon your quest for revenge. However, after spending so much time with you, I've grown to care about your well-being. There's something important I must convey to you." Gamamura, who was very close to the Sage of the Six Paths, possessed something bestowed upon him by the Sage himself. We, the Sage Places, are not certain about the nature of this item. It could be an artifact or something entirely different. What we do know for certain is that Mount Maiboku is under the protection of the Sage of the Six Paths. Katsuyu continued, "To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow the Sage of the Six Paths himself were to appear." Juryoku nodded in agreement, recognizing the significance of Gamamura's connection to Hagoromo and the potential importance of the Sage's protection over Mount Maiboku. He couldn't help but feel intrigued about what this protection might entail. Reassuring Katsuyu, Juryoku stated, "You needn't worry too much about me. While the chances of the Sage of the Six Paths appearing may be high, the likelihood of him engaging in combat with me is nearly zero. After all, he has been deceased for a very long time." Tsunade shook her head, departing from Shikatsu Forest with Sakura's summoned assistance, while Juryoku also left the forest, using Katsuyu's aid, already summoned at the daimyo mansion. Upon his return to the daimyo mansion, Joken inquired, "What did Lady Katsuyu want to discuss with you?" Michikatsu explained, "It was mostly Tsunade who wanted to persuade me to give up on the attack on Mount Maiboku. Lady Katsuyu also advised caution, reminding me that the toads of Mount Maiboku have lived for over 1,000 years." Joken agreed, saying, "Lady Katsuyu is right, you should exercise caution." With a sense of determination, Juryoku replied, "All right, I should be on my way. I need to begin my search for Mount Maiboku, and it's bound to take some time." Joken nodded, offering Juryoku a goodbye kiss, and as Juryoku nodded back, he took flight and departed, leaving Joken watching his departing figure as he flew away. Juryoku, after flying for several hours, arrived silently above the skies of Konoha. He carefully descended into the village, heading toward the Hokage building. There, he knew of a narrow underground waterway that led to Mount Maiboku. Realizing that his observation Haki alone might not be sufficient to locate the hidden waterway leading from Konoha to Mount Maiboku, Juryoku muttered to himself, "With my observation Haki alone, I won't be able to see the waterway." As he continued to move discreetly through the village, Juryoku sensed that he had been detected by the Konoha barrier team. They had already activated an emergency signal to inform Hokage Tsunade of his presence. However, Juryoku chose not to react and instead placed his hand on the ground. "If observation Haki won't be enough," he thought, "then I will use my gravity sensing method to locate the waterways within Konoha." Focusing his abilities, Juryoku combined his observation Haki with his gravity sensing technique. Soon, he was able to pinpoint the underground waterways leading away from Konoha, particularly the one connected to the Hokage building. "It seems that Tsunade has put a lot of thought into making sure I can't infiltrate the village. Well, whatever the case may be, my work here is done," Juryoku murmured as he sensed many ANBU ninjas approaching at high speed. With a shake of his head, Juryoku began to float a few inches above the ground. Just as he was about to make his escape by flying away, he sensed someone approaching. He clenched his fist and covered it with armament Haki, ready to strike. Jiraiya had suddenly appeared behind Juryoku, poised for an attack. However, before Jiraiya could land a blow, he was met with Juryoku's lightning-fast counterattack. Juryoku's punch was incredibly powerful, and the force of it struck Jiraiya's midsection with such intensity that the impact caused Jiraiya's stomach contents to spew out. The force of the punch sent Jiraiya hurtling like a bullet, obliterating everything in his path as he created a destructive straight line through buildings and structures. Chapter 101. Jiraiya grunted as he pushed the rubble away, slowly rising to his feet, coughing heavily. His body ached from the impact, but determination burned in his eyes. "You should learn the limits of your strength before attacking me," Juryoku remarked, his voice laced with an air of superiority. Jiraiya's brow furrowed with frustration. "Why? Why do you want to attack Mount Maiboku? All that has happened is because of me, so let's settle this with a fight," he declared, his voice tinged with resolve. Juryoku shook his head, his tone cold and unforgiving. "You know that with your current strength, you won't be able to defeat me. You'll surely die." Jiraiya nodded, acknowledging the grim truth. "I understand that, but protecting Hamura and Koharu, ensuring the stability of Konoha, those were my decisions. The toads of Mount Maiboku were merely assisting me, they are not to blame. And even if I perish in this battle, so be it." Juryoku remained steadfast. "I cannot kill you. It's the first promise I made to Tsunade, as part of the deal when I took Lady Katsuyu as my summon. I will not break my word. Your willingness to sacrifice yourself stems from the belief that those who make mistakes must face the consequences. The so-called sages of yours underestimated me and my strength, thinking they could handle someone like me with ease. Well, let them try." Finally, the Umbu ninjas, who had been closing in on Juryoku's location, reached their destination. They encircled Juryoku, their senses honed, poised for action. Meanwhile, Tsunade was also on her way, having received the news of Juryoku's arrival. Jiraiya had arrived ahead of her, for two critical reasons. Firstly, he was in proximity to the scene, and secondly, he had dispatched his toads throughout Konoha in anticipation of Juryoku's arrival, ready to counter the threat at a moment's notice. Juryoku, however, dismissed the presence of these Umbu ninjas as inconsequential. He turned to Jiraiya and remarked with a hint of irritation, "See, just because of you, I have to waste a few more minutes here." As Juryoku's words hung in the air, his conqueror's Haki began to exert its influence, from him as the center, on the Umbu ninjas as well. Despite their unwavering determination to protect Konoha, even the most formidable among them struggled to maintain their composure. The weaker ones succumbed, collapsing to the ground, unconscious. However, a handful of resolute Umbu ninjas refused to be defeated by Juryoku's overpowering aura alone. They bit their tongues, fighting through the pain to stay awake and alert. The sheer power of Juryoku's conqueror's Haki was palpable, evident from the houses in the vicinity as they continued to develop ominous cracks, as though they teetered on the brink of collapse. Even Jiraiya, who had once been relatively resistant to the effects of Juryoku's conqueror's Haki, now keenly sensed its weight pressing down on him. However, he counteracted the effects of conqueror's Haki with his own aura. Juryoku, uninterested in engaging in another debate with Tsunade, who was steadily approaching the scene, decided to take flight. He soared into the sky and swiftly departed from Konoha, leaving behind a sense of unease and uncertainty among those who had witnessed the clash of their formidable forces. "Jiraiya, are you all right?" Tsunade's concerned voice echoed as she arrived on the scene. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of Jiraiya, who was panting heavily. Nearly half of the Umbu ninjas lay unconscious on the ground, and even those who had managed to withstand Juryoku's conqueror's Haki were now seated, drained by their own willpower. She helped Jiraiya to his feet, her gaze searching for answers. "And where is Juryoku? The intelligence department informed me about his entry into Konoha." Jiraiya grimaced, his exhaustion evident. "He left Konoha just before you arrived," he replied. Tsunade's brows furrowed in frustration. What was he doing here in Konoha? Jiraiya shrugged, equally puzzled. No idea, but he definitely had some purpose. Tsunade's mind raced with possibilities. Could he have come to meet Ino? Jiraiya shook his head. I doubt it. He arrived and left so swiftly, as if he had already obtained what he wanted. Tsunade sighed in confusion. Just then, an Umbu ninja approached and knelt before her, delivering crucial information. "Lady Tsunade, we have sealed the entrance to Mount Maiboku." Tsunade's eyes widened, and a realization struck her. Simultaneously, Jiraiya voiced the same thought, the path to Mount Maiboku. Jiraiya's face contorted with regret. Why didn't I think of this earlier? Juryoku must have come to Konoha to learn the path to Mount Maiboku, the route that connects Konoha to the Mount Maiboku. Tsunade nodded in agreement. With his extraordinary senses, he could have discerned the path's location, even though it's hidden deep underground. Determination ignited in Jiraiya's eyes. "I need to inform Elder Fukasaku about this immediately," he declared, to which Tsunade nodded in approval. Chapter 102. Jiraiya had just performed the summoning technique, and with a billow of smoke, Fukasaku materialized before him. "Jiraiya, boy, it's the second time you've called for me today. Did you stumble upon something extraordinary?" Fukasaku inquired. Jiraiya's voice carried a tinge of shame as he replied, "Yes, Great Sage Juryoku arrived in Konoha just a few minutes ago. I confronted him and was swiftly defeated by a single move." Fukasaku comforted him, saying, "Why do you carry shame in your voice? You've done nothing wrong, it's merely a testament to his strength that he overcame you. But I suspect you didn't summon me here just to share this news, did you?" "No, not at all," Jiraiya replied. "The reason for Juryoku's unexpected visit to Konoha puzzled us, but we've deduced the most likely explanation." Fukasaku, instead of asking the question outright, delved into deep contemplation. Finally, after arriving at a conclusion, he said, "You mean to say he came here to verify the path to Mount Maiboku?" "Yes, that's precisely why I summoned you," Jiraiya affirmed. Tsunade chimed in, her concern evident. "Great Sage Fukasaku, I strongly recommend taking preemptive measures. Juryoku's speed is astonishingly fast, and it won't be long before he pinpoints the location of Mount Maiboku." Fukasaku responded with confidence, "Hokage, I understand your apprehension, but rest assured, we haven't made the underground waterway as straightforward as it may appear. It's a labyrinth concealed beneath the earth, with a true path known only to us toads. Not every toad is privy to its secrets, only a select few know the entire layout." Fukasaku then inquired, "Before my departure last time, you mentioned attempting to persuade Juryoku. Did he listen to your advice? Did Katsuya talk with him?" Tsunade's tone held a hint of frustration as she replied, "I did try to reason with him, but he remained obstinate." "Yes, he did converse with Katsuya, but even then, he refused to heed the warnings and remained steadfast in his pursuit. Katsuya also cautioned him about your possession of a powerful artifact of the Sage of Six Paths." Fukasaku's eyes gleamed with a shrewd understanding. "That should serve as a significant deterrent. With Katsuya's caution, Juryoku is unlikely to go all out in terms of speed to preserve his stamina. He'll exercise caution, aiming to be at his peak when he reaches Mount Maiboku. If he conducts his search in such a manner, it will take him at least a month to arrive. But what if he seeks Orochimaru's help? During the Chunin exam's attack, Orochimaru was present, and there might have been some sort of alliance between Juryoku and Orochimaru. Those snakes despise toads, and they wouldn't hesitate to leak our information," Jiraiya expressed his concern. Fukasaku attempted to soothe Jiraiya's anxieties. "Jiraiya, you tend to worry needlessly. As I mentioned earlier, the three sage places have a pact with each other. If they intended to attack us, there have been numerous opportunities in the past to expose our locations and initiate an assault." However, Jiraiya couldn't shake his restless feeling, fearing the snakes might indeed reveal their location. Fukasaku noticed his unease and decided to disclose a secret. "All right, I'll share a secret with you," Fukasaku began. "You could say this pact is etched in our blood, and only a select few high-ranking members of the three sage places know the locations of the others. We are bound by this pact. If any of us were to reveal the location of another sage place, we would face certain death." Furthermore, the information about the breach would be disseminated to all the sage places. In the unfortunate event that any of the sage places were to suffer damage, the locations of all three would be exposed by the others. Jiraiya was left in shock, unable to fathom the intricate and deadly nature of the pact binding the three sage places. Now that I've dispelled your doubts, I should take my leave. Although it will take Juryoku more than a month to reach Mount Maiboku, we have many preparations to attend to, Fukasaku stated. With a puff of smoke, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Fukasaku vanished from sight. After Fukasaku's departure, Jiraiya turned his gaze towards Tsunade and spoke earnestly, "Tsunade, I believe it's best for me to leave Konoha. I intend to follow Juryoku's path, monitor his progress, and be there to support Mount Maiboku when he arrives." Tsunade understood that it was impossible to dissuade Jiraiya. She sighed and said, "Take care, and make sure you come back in one piece." Jiraiya flashed a confident smile, replying, "What are you worried about, Tsunade? I am the immortal Toad Sage, after all." With those parting words, Jiraiya departed, leaving Konoha within minutes and following the direction in which Juryoku had recently taken flight. Chapter 103. In the current timeline, Sasori had chosen not to divulge Orochimaru's whereabouts to Sakura, or wasn't able to as he was reduced to dust by Juryoku. However, fate, or perhaps a stroke of good fortune, smiled upon the village as a team of vigilant Umbu ninjas managed to unearth the elusive hideout of Orochimaru. News of this discovery reached the Hokage office, where Naruto and Sakura happened to be present, drawn by the commotion surrounding Juryoku's unexpected arrival in Konoha. Understanding the gravity of the situation, both Naruto and Sakura petitioned for permission to embark on the pursuit of Orochimaru. Their motivation was clear. They knew that Sasuke was likely within Orochimaru's hidden lair. The timing proved fortuitous, as Kakashi, unburdened by the adverse effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan, shared their resolve. He, too, approached Tsunade, urging her to authorize their mission to Orochimaru's sanctum. Tsunade consented, recognizing the urgency of the situation, and further bolstered their team by summoning Yamato to accompany Team 7. However, it was important to note that in this altered timeline, Sai had met a tragic fate, perishing alongside the Roots organization, decimated by Juryoku's ruthless assault. With the team assembled and their hearts steeled, Team 7 set forth on their perilous quest to locate Orochimaru's hideout. Several days later, word of Juryoku's audacious attack on Mount Maiboku began to circulate throughout the ninja world, reaching the ears of all major shinobi villages. In the Raikage resplendent office within Kumogakure, 4th Raikage A himself received this alarming news. So, it seems that one of Konoha's staunchest allies, Mount Maiboku, is going to be attacked, and mused aloud, his keen interest piqued by the development. Mabui, the diligent assistant to the Raikage, affirmed the gravity of the situation. Indeed, Raikage-sama. It is none other than Juryoku who is going to attack Mount Maiboku. The reasons are not clear for now. The very mention of Juryoku's name ignited a fire of anger within A's chest. Juryoku, he seethed, his voice tinged with righteous fury. The very same wretch who assaulted Konoha upon the demise of the third Hokage? Mabui nodded somberly in confirmation, understanding the depth of the Raikage's resentment. Yes, Raikage-sama, it is indeed the selfsame Juryoku. A clenched his fists, recalling a painful history. I can never forget the atrocities committed by that bastard. He single-handedly decimated a Kumogakure squad when we dared to attack the Fire Country following the deaths of Danzo and the third Hokage. Mabui, displaying her characteristic poise, refrained from speaking further. Amidst the mounting tension, the eight-tailed Jinchuriki of Kumogakure, burst into the room, his enthusiasm failing to match the gravity of the situation. Fool! Yo, fool! What's all this ruckus about, huh? A's patience wore thin, and he issued a stern rebuke. Idiot! How many times must I remind you not to barge in like this? His frustration culminated in a forceful strike against the table. Mabui, adopting a measured tone, interjected, seeking to temper the Raikage's volatile emotions. Raikage-sama, please, let us not allow this situation to escalate further. Breathe, and compose yourself. With a measured breath, I steadied himself and directed his attention toward B. Yes, Lord B, Mount Myaboku faces an imminent threat from Juryoku, Mabui calmly clarified. Haha. Well, it appears someone must either be an immense fool or profoundly confident in their strength, chuckled the voice of the Eight Tails, who resided within B. Perplexed by this cryptic statement, I sought clarification. What exactly do you mean by that? He inquired. The Eight Tails continued, consider this, if a select few individuals within Kumogakure possess relics tied to the Sage of Six Paths, whether through lineage or other connections to Sage of Six Paths, then envision the level of protection and treasures that the Sage of Six Paths would have bestowed upon his closest friend and advisor, Gamamaru, the current Great Toad Sage. I, though growing impatient, pressed for a more straightforward explanation. Enough with the circles. Speak plainly. Acknowledging the need for clarity, I received the Eight Tails revelation and realized that the individuals within Kumogakure with ties to the Sage of Six Paths were none other than Kinkaku and Ginkaku. Indeed, affirmed the Eight Tails, in his final moments, the Sage of Six Paths entrusted various individuals, including those related to him, with distinct responsibilities. This extends to us, the tailed beasts. He assigned his younger son with the duty to safeguard Mount Myaboku. Attempting to reconcile the ancient history with the current events, questioned, but what relevance does this historical account have to the situation unfolding now? Thousands of years have passed, and surely the sage's younger son must have long since departed this world. The Eight Tails countered, its voice tinged with an air of enigma. You underestimate the might of the Sage of Six Paths and the extent of his methods. To him, individuals of your strength would be as inconsequential as mere insects. I've disclosed all the information within my purview. In the face of this tantalizing revelation, I could only ponder the extraordinary depths of the Sage of Six Paths' legacy and the mysteries that still lay concealed within it. Chapter 104, The Fourth Raikage, A, was acutely aware that further inquiries directed at Eight Tails would yield no fruit. With a determined expression, he turned to Mabui, his dedicated secretary, and issued a decisive command, Mabui, dispatch multiple reconnaissance teams to track Juryoku's movements. Once he reaches Mount Myaboku and engages in a battle with the toads there, use the heavenly transfer technique to send me directly to the battlefield. I want to witness firsthand what the Sage of Six Paths entrusted to Mount Myaboku's protection. Mabui nodded in acknowledgement and promptly replied, I will immediately deploy 5 teams to monitor Juryoku's actions. Amidst the intensity of the moment, B, with his characteristic enthusiasm, interjected, Fool. Ya fool! I'm going with the team to track Juryoku, fool. Angrily, I retorted, You're going nowhere, B. You must remain in the village. I redirected his stern gaze towards Mabui and instructed, Send a team to keep a vigilant eye on B, ensuring he doesn't slip away from Kumogakure. Mabui dutifully confirmed, Consider it done. However, B was not one to be deterred easily. He defiantly declared, Fool. Ya fool! I'm going, and no one can stop me. Unperturbed, I responded, Is that so? It appears you haven't experienced a proper lesson in quite some time, my friend. You might need a thorough beating to calm down. Witnessing A's determination, B sensed trouble brewing and swiftly began making his escape. But before he could get far, Raikage A seized him by the armpit, stating with resolve, I'll deal with this troublemaker first. While I do that, Mabui, please handle some of the paperwork. With that, I shattered a nearby window and leaped out of the Raikage's towering office. Sighing in exasperation, Mabui couldn't help but comment, Will you ever stop breaking the windows? Now I have to clean up this mess before I can even think about the paperwork. As Kumogakure set its plans in motion to locate Juryoku's whereabouts, the ripple effect of their actions extended to the other major ninja villages. Eager to witness the response of one of the sage places to this unfolding enigma, these villages too initiated a monumental shift. It was a domino effect that promised to reshape the very fabric of the ninja world, altering the course of events in ways never foreseen had Juryoku remained a mere specter in their realm. Every Kage, from the mighty leaders of the hidden villages, awaited with bated breath the impending clash of titans. Their curiosity piqued, they prepared to be spectators to a battle that would transcend the ordinary. This event was no longer confined to the exclusive domain of Kages, for even the guardians of the other two sage places could not resist the allure of this impending spectacle. It was as though an epic arena had been meticulously staged, where the world's two most formidable beings were destined to engage in a cataclysmic showdown. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on the minds of the other Kages. They remembered the sheer might Juryoku had wielded 3 years prior, and his subsequent disappearance had only added to the enigma that shrouded him. Recent rumors of Juryoku's skirmish with the Akatsuki had found their way into the ears of the major villages. Additionally, these leaders had long been aware of the extraordinary power that the sage places possessed. The enigmatic battle about to unfold piqued the interest of even the toads, and toads are taking this upcoming battle seriously, compounding the urgency felt by the Kages to gauge the strength of Juryoku and the enigmatic sage place. From Iwagakure, the venerable Inoki took matters into his own hands. He dispatched a dedicated team in hot pursuit of Juryoku, bolstering their efforts by sending his formidable summoning beast, Rock Hyrax. He intended to be present at the epic confrontation, witnessing firsthand the clash that held the ninja world in thrall. It was no small matter that only Konoha and Kumogakure boasted potent teleportation techniques, capable of instantaneously transporting individuals across vast distances. Realizing this, the other major villages' Kages took unique approaches to bridge the gap. And that was by sending their summoning beast with the teams going to track Juryoku. When the battle of Juryoku versus Toads begin, they will get reverse summoned by their summoning beast to the battlefield. Gaara, having recuperated, yearned to bear witness to Juryoku's battle with the Toads. He committed to go to the battlefield by signing a summoning contract with Temari's own summoning beast, Kamatari. Temari, along with her summoning beast, and Kankuro, joined in the quest to locate and observe Juryoku's epic encounter with Baki as their leader. Likewise, Terumi Mei, the leader of the Mist Village, had her own plans. She dispatched her summoning beast to the battlefield, along with the team of Kumogakure in the leadership of Ao and elite Jonin of Kirigakure, intent on being a spectator to the impending clash between Juryoku and the Toads. The formidable strength of these beings had drawn the attention of the world's most powerful leaders, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to witness this historic battle. The proactive movements of the other major ninja villages did not go unnoticed by the vigilant eyes of Konoha, which remained ever watchful. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Konoha swiftly relayed this significant development to their esteemed allies, the Toads. However, the transmission of this crucial information was not without its weighty implications, as it bore the potential to compromise the hitherto well-guarded secrecy surrounding the location of Mount Maiboku, the sanctum of the Toads. The notion of this secrecy being threatened sparked deep concern among the Toads, who had long maintained the mystique of their sacred abode, hidden from prying eyes and rival villages. Chapter 105, in the secluded, shadowy confines of Orochimaru's hideout, the sinister figure of the snake-like villain loomed. His piercing eyes locked onto Sasuke. Orochimaru leaned in, his voice dripping with a malevolent desire, and addressed the young ninja. Sasuke-kun, Orochimaru licked his lips. I want you to journey to the impending battlefield, where the Juryoku is preparing to launch a devastating assault on the Toads. Sasuke, deep in thought, absorbed Orochimaru's words. Memories of his past encounters with Juryoku, each one marred by humiliating defeat, surged to the forefront of his mind. But now, with the passage of time and rigorous training, he had grown into a formidable force. Confidence coursed through his veins, and he knew that he wouldn't allow another shameful loss at Juryoku's hands. Though uncertainty swirled within him, Sasuke nodded resolutely. I agree, he declared. But on one condition, I must assemble my own team, handpicked from the shadows of your hideouts. Orochimaru, his tongue flicking out like a serpent tasting the air, couldn't help but be intrigued. It appears you already have a roster in mind, he mused. Very well, Sasuke, you have your wish. But, my dear, consider this. Are you certain you want to depart now, especially when your so-called best friend, Naruto, is on his way to see you? Sasuke's gaze turned icy, his voice betraying none of the camaraderie that once bound him to Naruto. "I have no best friends," he stated coldly. "If I crossed paths with him this time, I might have ended him. He should count himself lucky that he survived my wrath this time." With those words, Sasuke left Orochimaru's presence, setting forth on a journey filled with uncertainty, determination, and the ghosts of his past. In the Mount Myaboku, a conversation between two venerable toads unfolded. Fukasaku addressed Gamamaru, the esteemed Great Toad Sage, with a weighty matter on his mind. "Great Toad Sage," Fukasaku began, concern etched on his amphibious features, "disturbing news have reached our ears from the village of Konoha. The news of Juryoku's audacious attack on our sacred Mount Myaboku has quickly spread. This dire situation has roused the interest of neighboring villages, prompting them to dispatch their ninjas to trail Juryoku. This is an unsettling turn of events, for if Juryoku were to locate Mount Myaboku, the Mount Myaboku that has remained concealed from the world for centuries would be unveiled. Such a revelation could bode ill for our cherished Mount Myaboku." Gamamaru, seated regally upon his pawn throne, gazed thoughtfully at Fukasaku. "Your apprehensions are well-founded, Fukasaku," he acknowledged. "Our sacred haven secrecy must be safeguarded at all costs. Have you any counsel to offer in this hour of peril?" With a determined expression, Fukasaku responded, "Indeed, I have a suggestion. Instead of waiting for Juryoku to close in on us, we should seize the initiative and engage him in combat. By doing so, we can select a battleground of our choosing, keeping the sanctity of Mount Myaboku intact while thwarting any collateral damage during our confrontation with Juryoku." With a determined expression, Fukasaku responded, "Indeed, I have a suggestion. Instead of waiting for Juryoku to close in on us, we should seize the initiative and engage him in combat. By doing so, we can select a battleground of our choosing, keeping the sanctity of Mount Myaboku intact while thwarting any collateral damage during our confrontation with Juryoku." Fukasaku, appreciating Gamamaru's concurrence, nodded earnestly. "I shall make the necessary preparations so that our entire Toad army can mobilize outside the confines of Mount Myaboku." Gamamaru's thoughts then drifted to two powerful toads of Mount Myaboku. "Have Sage Gamashiri and Sage Awayato been roused from their slumber?" he inquired, his concern evident. Fukasaku's eyes gleamed with assurance as he replied, "Indeed, they have awoken from their timeless rest. Their anger simmers at the audacity of one who dared to assail Mount Myaboku." "Excellent," Gamamaru said with a nod. "I shall personally convene with them and address their concerns. You should focus on preparing for the imminent battle. Our Mount Myaboku's fate hangs in the balance." With the roles to find, Fukasaku departed. After leaving the hall, Fukasaku found one of the toads and gave it an important task. He told the toad to deliver a message to Juryoku about where the battle would take place. They chose an empty spot in the fire country near a big river because it would be advantageous for the toads. Fukasaku didn't leave anything to chance. He sent not just one, but two toad messengers, one to Juryoku and the other to Konoha, the hidden leaf village. The goal was to inform Juryoku about the battleground, tempting him to come there for a fight. At the same time, they wanted Konoha to get involved in the upcoming showdown. This would put pressure on Juryoku and force him to face them at the chosen battleground, where the toads had the upper hand. It was a brilliant plan, a clever strategy that set the stage for an epic battle. The toads were ready, and the fate of Mount Myaboku was at stake. Following Fukasaku's instructions, the toads delivered the message to Juryoku. He received this news at a time when he was incredibly frustrated. He had been searching for Mount Myaboku tirelessly but hadn't expected the toads to hide it so cleverly. They had created an intricate network of underground waterways, not just in the fire country but also in neighboring lands. This made it incredibly hard for Juryoku, even with his mighty observation Haki at its peak, to find Mount Myaboku. Faced with this daunting challenge, Juryoku realized that locating Mount Myaboku was a near impossible task. So, he made a pragmatic decision. He decided to accept the invitation to battle and head to the chosen battleground, where the toads were ready to face him. Chapter 106. After discovering Mount Myaboku's plan, Tsunade readily agreed and deliberately leaked the vital information, ensuring that the world knew of the impending battle between Juryoku and the toads of Mount Maiboku. As all of this unfolded, a fierce battle raged on between Orochimaru and Naruto in his formidable Four Tails form. Their clash was nothing short of a cataclysm, shaking the very ground beneath them. Orochimaru's cunning, snake-like movements countered Naruto's raw, unbridled power. The fight was a spectacle of overwhelming strength, as the earth trembled with each blow. In the aftermath of the intense combat, Orochimaru managed to slip away, narrowly escaping Naruto's wrath. Yamato, with his rare would-release abilities, stood as the calming force amidst the chaos. He harnessed his power to soothe Naruto's raging spirit, preventing the young shinobi from descending further into madness. This time, the situation had a twist. Kakashi, one of the most skilled ninja of Konoha, was also present during the battle. His Sharingan eyes bore into Orochimaru's every move. The battle took an unexpected turn as Kakashi's calculated strategies, coupled with Naruto's relentless attacks, left Orochimaru severely injured. During the confrontation, Orochimaru even lost an arm, a testament to the intensity of the conflict. However, Orochimaru, the master of unorthodox techniques, managed to escape death using his signature Orochimaru-style body replacement technique. This act came at the cost of his dwindling chakra, leaving him fatigued and wary of further injuries. He was also aware of a historic battle on the horizon, one he couldn't afford to miss. With Orochimaru's departure and Naruto's eventual calming, Kakashi received the news about the newly revealed battleground where Juryoku would face the toads of Mount Maiboku. The deliberate information leaked by Konoha didn't just reach the major villages but trickled down to even the smallest, most remote settlements. The rumor of this epic showdown spread like wildfire, drawing the curious and the brave from all corners. It was as if an arena had been erected, the fighters poised for an epic duel, and spectators converging on the location for what promised to be an unforgettable match. The anticipation and excitement in the air were palpable, setting the stage for a truly historic showdown. 5 days later, the impending battle drew near, and Juryoku sat perched on a solitary rock, his eyes closed in deep concentration. In his grasp, he clutched his sword, ready for the challenge ahead. Around him, a substantial distance away, ninjas from various villages were scattered in 3 distinct directions, forming a protective perimeter with Juryoku at its core. Finally, here, Juryoku muttered, rising from his seat. With his extraordinary observation Haki, he could sense the approaching toads, their presence now just 50 kilometers away. His quiet resolve stirred the other ninja from different villages into action. They swiftly communicated with their respective Kages, relaying the unfolding situation. The Kages, once informed, unanimously agreed to gather at the location, and ninjas began using various techniques to summon their leaders. Tsunade, the Lady Hokage of Konoha, was the first to arrive, utilizing the Flying Thunder formation technique. The Konoha ninjas bowed in respect, to which Tsunade responded with a nod. Her gaze then shifted to Kakashi, and she inquired, "How did your mission go?" "Lady Hokage, Orochimaru managed to escape," Kakashi reported, stepping forward. Tsunade nodded and responded, "Provide a detailed report upon our return to Konoha." Kakashi acknowledged her orders before stepping back. Next to arrive was Raikage A, accompanied by Killer B. The Raikage's eyes fell upon Juryoku, and he commented, "So, he's Juryoku?" A jonin from Kumo, who had been tracking Juryoku, confirmed, "Yes, he is." Raikage A nodded, taking note of the intel. Following him, Tsuchika Jinoki, the third in his title, arrived by summoning his beast. He joined the growing assembly, where Tsunade and Raikage A were already present. Fifth Kazekage, Gaara, was the fourth to arrive. He acknowledged Temari and Kankuro, who were present, and then exchanged nods with the other Kages, symbolizing an alliance between Suna and Konoha. The final Kage to appear was Terumi Mei, the fifth Mizukage. She nodded in recognition of AO and the Kirigakure team that accompanied her, her smile radiating warmth towards her fellow Kages. As all the Kages gathered, a sudden disturbance occurred. A group of individuals wearing black robes adorned with a menacing red cloud pattern materialized seemingly out of thin air. Inoki immediately recognized them as Akatsuki, with whom he had crossed paths on numerous occasions. The realization hit the other Kages just as swiftly. Standing beside Tsunade, Jiraiya was left in a state of shock. He couldn't believe his eyes, taking a moment to confirm he wasn't hallucinating. Among the Akatsuki members, he spotted his two former students. Yahiko and Konan? Jiraiya exclaimed, his voice laden with astonishment. Tsunade too identified the two from her memories of the Second Ninja War, casting a shadow of apprehension over the gathering. The unexpected appearance of Akatsuki members signaled the onset of a new, unpredictable phase in the impending battle. Sasuke, who had been present among the onlookers, couldn't believe his eyes when he spotted Itachi among the Akatsuki members. A storm of emotions raged within him, and an intense wave of anger washed over his face. His Sharingan, adorned with 3 tomos, activated of its own accord, casting an eerie crimson glow that signaled his mounting fury. In response to Sasuke's unrelenting killing intent, Itachi's gaze shifted toward his younger brother. Their eyes locked in a battle of fierce rivalry, carrying a legacy of pain and vengeance that had long defined their relationship. Interesting, remarked Terumi Mei, her eyes trained on Sasuke, noting the crimson Sharingan ablaze with power. The gathering crowd held its collective breath, fully aware that the impending showdown was bound to be nothing short of spectacular. Sasuke, Naruto uttered, his fists clenching involuntarily, a mixture of concern and determination etched on his face. The bond between these two friends was a beacon of unwavering support. Sasuke-kun, Sakura murmured, her eyes locked onto the tempestuous young Uchiha. Chapter 107. As the tension in the air grew thicker, anticipation filled the hearts of the spectators gathered to witness the long-awaited confrontation between Sasuke and Itachi. But the atmosphere suddenly changed, as an overwhelming pressure descended upon them. Even the seasoned Chunin found it difficult to remain upright, and an ominous black cloud gathered in the sky, casting an eerie shadow over the battlefield. Reikage couldn't help but murmur, such pressure. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by a solemn expression, mirroring the faces of the other Kages, who were well aware of the power at play. The only exception was Tsunade, whose steadfast resolve stemmed from past encounters with this same pressure, courtesy of Juryoku. Juryoku, however, was not content with merely exerting his conqueror's haki. He expanded his gravity field, encompassing all who were present within its reach. As the crushing weight of the gravity field bore down upon them, only a select few managed to defy its relentless pull. Among those who stood unwavering were obviously Kages, and Naruto, Sasuke, a handful of elite jonins, and the members of the formidable Akatsuki. Naruto and Sasuke, despite their incredible power, struggled to maintain their footing under the immense gravitational force. It was a testament to their indomitable wills that they remained upright. In that intense moment, Juryoku's voice rang out, carrying the weight of his conviction. "This is my battle, and my rules," he declared. His words echoed with an air of authority that silenced the entire battlefield. "You are all mere spectators, and I caution you, should anyone dare to intervene, you will face dire consequences." With those words, Juryoku withdrew his conqueror's haki and dispelled the gravity field. This action served as a clear warning to the Kages and the other ninjas who stood watching. It was a necessary step for Juryoku, ensuring that no interference would disrupt the outcome of the battle he had set in motion. His purpose was undeniably achieved, as the moment Juryoku released his hold on the conqueror's haki and gravity field, all the other ninjas, including the special jonin and those of lesser rank, lay sprawled unconscious on the unforgiving ground, a stark reminder of the power and authority he held over this battlefield. A heavy silence hung over the battlefield, with the Kages now harboring no doubts about the formidable strength of Juryoku. Any lingering uncertainties had been banished from their minds. 10 tense minutes passed, marked by the increasing tremors in the surrounding area. The earth shook beneath their feet, and the ominous sounds of colossal entities descending reverberated through the air. The entire assembly held its breath as they realized that the Toad Sages were en route. From a distance, blurry figures emerged, gradually resolving into a recognizable form. Leading the majestic procession was none other than Gamabunta, towering over the landscape, his head adorned by the wise Fukasaku and Shima. Following in his wake came Gamahiro and a toad bearing a striking resemblance to Gamaken. But the awe-inspiring sight did not stop there. As the ground continued to quake, two colossal toads, dwarfing even Gamabunta, came into view. The first was Sage Awayato, with skin that resembled hardened rock, exuding an aura of impenetrable strength. Marching alongside was Sage Gamashiri, an enormous creature whose sheer size alone sent shockwaves of astonishment through the spectators. The Kages were taken aback by the sheer might and size of these powerful toads. Their expectations had been exceeded. These creatures were not merely powerful, they possessed the capacity to unleash unimaginable destruction within any ninja village. The true extent of their strength would soon be revealed in the impending battle. Gamashiri's voice rumbled, echoing across the battlefield. "So, this is the human who dares to attack us?" Fukasaku responded, a sense of gravitas in his voice. "Yes, he is Juryoku, the one who has challenged us." The great toad sage foresaw the future, one that spelled the destruction of Mount Maiboku, which is closely tied to our existence. Gamamira, stepping forward, addressed Juryoku directly. "I won't attempt to persuade you to relinquish your assault on Mount Maiboku, for it would be futile. Your history of ignoring the counsel of those who came before you speaks volumes. However, I must warn you now, from this moment onward, you will bear sole responsibility for every consequence that follows." "You are absolutely right," Juryoku acknowledged with a sly grin. "It seems you brought the combatant toads of Mount Maiboku." Gamamira nodded somberly, his voice laced with regret. "We had no other choice. Others would have perished in vain, mere casualties of our battle." "I'll assist as well," Jiraiya declared, preparing to leap into action. However, Juryoku's voice cut through the air like a blade. "I believe I made it abundantly clear that no one should interfere. It appears you didn't quite catch that." With incredible speed, Juryoku unleashed a devastating strike known as the Gravity Blade, Raging Tiger. A massive, black slash tore through the air, hurtling toward Jiraiya. The seasoned ninja was about to employ his ninjutsu, Earth Release, Earth-style Rampart, not only to evade the attack but also to shield the Konoha ninjas behind him. Just as Jiraiya was ready to unleash his jutsu, a toad resembling Gamaken sprang into action. "I am Gamesen," he announced. "Though I may lack my father's grace, I believe I can withstand this assault." With unwavering determination, Gamesen raised a makeshift shield constructed from a sturdy pan, positioning it before him to absorb the full brunt of Juryoku's strike. But reality often proved cruel, and as the black sword arc connected with Gamesen's defense, the pan shield shattered within a mere second. The force of the blow struck Gamesen directly, shrouding him in a cloud of dust. The suspenseful moment hung in the air as the dust began to settle. When the haze cleared, Gamesen came into view, panting heavily, his entire body drenched in blood. The injuries inflicted by the strike were evident, numerous bones in his body had been shattered, a testament to the ferocity of Juryoku's attack. Chapter 108, Jiraiya found himself burdened with an overwhelming sense of guilt as he looked upon Gamesen's battered form. The brave toad's condition was a painful reminder that his intervention had forced Gamesen into a perilous situation, resulting in the latter's grievous injuries. "Are you all right, Sen?" Jiraiya inquired, his voice laden with concern. He couldn't help but feel responsible for the young toad's suffering. "I was more than capable of defending myself, you didn't have to take that attack head-on." Gamesen, his gaze downcast and his spirit broken, replied with a heavy heart, "I wanted to prove to myself that I could withstand an attack from the one who took my father from me. But it seems I'm still far too weak. I've brought disgrace to my father's legacy." Jiraiya, his wise eyes filled with empathy, sought to uplift Gamesen's spirits. "You possess incredible strength, Gamesen. It's just that your opponent happens to be extraordinarily powerful. This isn't a reflection of your abilities." Gamesen nodded, though his thoughts were still troubled. He glanced at his comrade toads, a sense of regret weighing on his heart. I am deeply sorry. At the very outset of this battle, I proved to be ineffective. I won't be able to fight alongside you and support you all. Gamamura, the great Toad Sage and a voice of reason in their group, stepped in with reassurance. There is no fault in this, Gamison. You should go to Mount Maiboku and rest. Your injuries aren't suited for the battlefield. With a heavy heart and a nod of gratitude, Gamison vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving his comrades behind. Juryoku knew that he could have killed Gamison, but the presence of other Konoha ninjas had prevented him from doing so. Juryoku can attack Gamison to kill him, but due to Konoha ninjas, he won't be able to do so in one shot, so Gamison will escape in the end, wasting his time, so he didn't bother attacking Gamison. Juryoku turned his attention toward the toads from Mount Maiboku and calmly asked, "Shall we continue?" Just as he was about to take a step, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. The ground beneath him began to rise, morphing into a towering earth pillar. Like a catapult, the pillar flung him high into the air. Gamabunta and Gamashiro, poised to strike, leaped into the sky, brandishing their swords. They descended upon Juryoku with deadly intent. However, Juryoku harnessed his gravity control ability, swiftly stabilizing himself mid-air. As the swords of Gamabunta and Gamashiro closed in, Juryoku demonstrated his incredible speed by effortlessly dodging their attacks. In a seamless sequence of movements, Juryoku countered their assault with a powerful technique gravity push. The force of the push sent both Gamabunta and Gamashiro hurtling through the air, and they crashed back to the ground with a resounding impact. To their credit, both Gamabunta and Gamashiro, displaying remarkable precision, used their swords as anchors. By driving the blades into the earth, they landed smoothly and were prepared to face Juryoku once more. Juryoku wasn't about to back down easily. With an explosive burst of energy, he lunged at Gamabunta from the sky, his sword crackling with armament Haki. The blade shimmered with the power of wind and thunder-infused chakra, adding an electrifying edge to his attack. As he touched down on the earth, he transformed into a blur, hurtling toward Gamabunta. The colossal toad prepared himself for the oncoming onslaught, his mighty frame tensing for impact. Shima, perched atop Gamabunta's head, readied herself to assist. The tension in the air was palpable as Juryoku closed in for the strike. However, a wise voice interrupted the impending clash. Fukasaku, stationed on the head of Gamashiro, urged, "Take to the skies. His speed is too much to handle on the ground." In the blink of an eye, Gamabunta acted on Fukasaku's counsel. Without a moment's hesitation, he leaped skyward, leading Juryoku's earth-shaking assault to meet only empty air. Juryoku's sword came to an abrupt halt in midair, a hair's breadth away from slashing Gamabunta as the colossal toad soared into the heavens with remarkable agility. Juryoku wasted no time. With a swift, fluid motion, he levitated into the air and unleashed a ferocious strike upon Gamabunta. Responding with lightning-fast reflexes, Gamabunta met Juryoku's assault head-on, a clash of epic proportions high above the ground. In this aerial duel, the contrast was stark, Juryoku's slender blade versus Gamabunta's colossal weapon. As the two swords met, the clash was deafening. Gamabunta's sword, however, proved no match for Juryoku's overwhelming power. In the blink of an eye, it snapped in half, and Juryoku, undeterred and unwavering, pressed forward with his attack. Juryoku, displaying his combat prowess, began running vertically along the length of Gamabunta's massive hand. With each step left a trail of cut on the toad's formidable appendage. The tension in the air was palpable as Juryoku inched closer to Gamabunta's shoulder. Just when it seemed that Juryoku's assault would reach its target, Shima, perched atop Gamabunta's head, unleashed the formidable frog kata. Caught off guard and not beat in sage mode, Juryoku wasn't able to sense the attack, and found himself unable to react or defend. With a swift, decisive pushback from Gamabunta's hand, he was sent hurtling backward, thwarted in his attempt to reach the toad's shoulder. Chapter 109. As Gamabunta soared through the sky, Gamashiro leaped up alongside him, ready to lend his support. On Gamashiro's massive head stood Fukasaku, while Shima unleashed the frog kata. This powerful move sent Juryoku airborne, creating a golden opportunity for Fukasaku to strike him from an incredibly close range. Juryoku, suspended in midair, was completely vulnerable. Fukasaku, seizing the chance, launched his frog kata with all his might. Juryoku had no time to react before the devastating blow connected. Like a meteor hurtling earthward, Juryoku plummeted to the ground at breakneck speed, crashing with a thunderous impact that sent shockwaves through the earth. The moment Juryoku collided with the ground, the entire area quaked, and a swirling cloud of dust enveloped the impact site. The onlookers, fellow ninjas, could only guess at the immense force Juryoku had just endured. Seizing the moment, Fukasaku recognized the perfect opportunity to strike while Juryoku was likely disoriented from the powerful attack. He turned to Gamashiro and urged, "Shiro, with all your strength, thrust your sword into the same spot where Juryoku is now." Without hesitation, Gamashiro replied, "I'll do it immediately." Guided by his heightened perception in Sage Mode, Gamashiro precisely pinpointed Juryoku's location. With his sword held vertically and poised for a deadly thrust, Gamashiro descended from the sky with full force, aiming to end Juryoku's life in a single, decisive blow. After witnessing Gamashiro hurtling toward Juryoku with a breathtaking velocity, the Jonins held their collective breath. The sheer power behind the impending collision left them with grim expectations. Most believed that, at the very least, Juryoku would suffer grievous injuries from Gamashiro's assault. However, those who truly understood Juryoku's formidable resilience harbored doubts. As Gamashiro closed in on Juryoku, his sword mere centimeters from its intended target, Juryoku's voice pierced the air, "Gravity push." In an instant, Gamashiro's confidence in a swift victory was shattered as he was flung away like a tattered kite, dissipating the lingering dust cloud in the process. Before the bewildered onlookers could even register the shocking turn of events, a brilliant streak of white light burst forth from the dissipating dust cloud. It raced through the sky like a shooting star, leaving a resounding sonic boom in its wake. Itachi, a member of Akatsuki who had been observing the battle, couldn't help but marvel at the scene before him. "This is Juryoku," he mused, his voice tinged with admiration. Completely unharmed, even after enduring 2 surprise attacks from the Toad Sages. The fight had taken an unexpected twist, and the true extent of Juryoku's power had been revealed. "Is it really?" Juryoku had fixed his sights on Gamashiro's head, closing the distance with astonishing speed. Perched atop Gamashiro, Fukasaku knew that Juryoku was determined to deliver a fatal blow, aiming to sever Gamashiro's head from his body. The critical factor in this life-and-death struggle was whether anyone would come to Gamashiro's aid. Fate, it seemed, rested on Fukasaku's small shoulders as he was above the head of Gamashiro. With his over 800 years of experience, Fukasaku discerned a distinct path for Juryoku's lethal attack. He swiftly acted to tilt Gamashiro's head, ensuring that Juryoku's strike would miss its intended target, thus keeping Gamashiro safe. Fukasaku's actions were the result of meticulous calculations and a deep knowledge of combat strategy. The relief washed over Fukasaku as he believed he had averted a disaster by tilting Gamashiro's head, saving him from Juryoku's deadly assault. However, in the heat of the moment, he failed to notice a crucial change. The instant he decided to shift Gamashiro's head, Juryoku also veered from his original trajectory. Just as Fukasaku allowed himself a moment of relief, thinking he had successfully safeguarded Gamashiro, he suddenly realized the peril. Juryoku had already closed the distance, poised to strike. With a heart-wrenching cry, Fukasaku desperately shouted, "Shiro!" But it was too late. In the blink of an eye, Juryoku's attack found its mark, cleanly separating Gamashiro's head from his body, and as Fukasaku uttered the word "boy," his voice dropped to a sorrowful whisper. The battle had taken a tragic turn, with unexpected consequences that left everyone stunned. "Shiro!" Jiraiya's desperate cry echoed through the chaotic battle. He made a move to rush to Gamashiro's side, but Tsunade firmly grasped his shoulder, her eyes conveying a clear message: Jiraiya mustn't interfere. Juryoku had issued a stern warning that no one should meddle in the battle, and Tsunade was uncertain what consequences Juryoku might unleash if those restrictions were broken. "Shiro!" In a defiant shout, Awayato Sage leaped into the air, his mace raised high, ready to join the fray. Juryoku, however, harbored no sympathy for his enemies. He had no intention of waiting for their interference to subside. Without hesitation, he pressed on, targeting Fukasaku. Fukasaku, with over 800 years of battle-hardened experience, understood the harsh reality of the battlefield. There was no room for mourning or sorrow. As Juryoku closed in on him, Fukasaku unleashed the formidable frog kata, the only effective counter against Juryoku known thus far. Fukasaku believed that this attack would, at the very least, push Juryoku back. Yet, as with previous events, circumstances took an unexpected turn. Juryoku swiftly evaded the frog kata assault, leaving Fukasaku dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, Juryoku appeared in front of him. Blood spilled from Fukasaku's mouth as he glanced down at his chest, where Juryoku's deadly strike had found its mark, piercing his heart. The battlefield had shifted once again, and the tide of the fight had taken a grim turn. Chapter 110, Fukasaku gazed at Juryoku with disbelief, his mind struggling to process the grim reality before him. He never anticipated that his life would be snuffed out by the hands of Juryoku. With a trembling voice, he managed to utter a single word, future. Though Fukasaku's words were brief, they carried a weight of meaning that transcended language, and Juryoku comprehended his unspoken message. It was an acknowledgement of the events that had unfolded, events that Juryoku had, in a sense, foreseen. Juryoku's mastery of observation Haki, future sight, had allowed him to anticipate Fukasaku's actions, predicting that the old sage would tilt Gamashiro's head, a maneuver that ultimately led to Gamashiro's untimely demise through a single, deadly sword strike. Fukasaku, in his desperation, had resorted to his frog kata, but even this was within Juryoku's foresight. Every move was a mere dance to Juryoku, choreographed by the strings of the future. He effortlessly countered Fukasaku's attacks, delivering a swift and decisive blow that brought the sage to his knees. The only reason Shima's frog kata had connected was that Juryoku had not used his observation Haki, future sight, in that moment. In the blink of an eye, the battlefield changed once more. A colossal black mace materialized out of nowhere, hurtling towards Juryoku, sending him hurtling towards the unforgiving ground. The assailant was none other than Awayato, who had seized the opportune moment right after Juryoku's merciless act against Gamashiro. Juryoku, thanks to his mastery of observation Haki, future sight, was well aware of this impending assault. He faced a split-second decision, and Fukasaku or dodge Awayato's lethal strike. Juryoku opted for the latter and encased his body in a thin layer of focused gravity. Even if Awayato's attack found its mark, it would not have a profound impact. After piercing Fukasaku's heart, he was sent soaring through the air, carried away by the force of the blow. Those who could follow the lightning-speed succession of Juryoku's actions were left in stunned silence. To them, it appeared as if Fukasaku were the catalyst for Gamashiro's tragic fate, a revelation that left them thoroughly perplexed. Obito couldn't help but comment, just as I suspected, Juryoku possessed the ability to glimpse into the future. Nagato, speaking through the vessel of pain, added his insights, but as far as I recall, he didn't possess such an ability when we faced him 3 years ago. Obito clarified, "You're correct, 3 years ago, he didn't have this power. However, when I crossed paths with him while rescuing Deidara, he could predict my every move. He knew my location before I even appeared and could anticipate my actions." Pain nodded in agreement, acknowledging the undeniable truth of Obito's words. In that moment, the fourth Raikage and the others present began to realize that the situation was far more intricate than they had initially perceived. Kakashi, who stood alongside Tsunade, finally spoke, "Hokage-sama, I've mentioned before the extraordinary ability of Juryoku. He might possess the power to see the future." Tsunade nodded thoughtfully and responded, "I recall, and I also informed Sage Fukasaku of this." The other Kages present were taken aback. The concept of future sight was a potent and rare ability, especially in the hands of someone as formidable as Juryoku. They comprehended the gravity of the situation, recognizing that when an opponent can predict their every move, victory becomes nearly assured, provided their strengths are comparable. Awayato, after his forceful strike on Juryoku, carefully captured Fukasaku and carried him to Gamamura and the others. "Pa," Shima cried out, tears welling up at the sight of Fukasaku's condition. Gamamura tried to console her, saying, "Shima, calm down. He's not completely gone." Shima, with a trembling voice, questioned, "But how can he survive such a wound?" Her eyes fixated on the grievous injury that had pierced Fukasaku's heart. Gamamura reassured her, "Do not worry. Have you forgotten about the secret treasure of the toads?" Shima's shock was evident as she asked, "Are you really going to use it?" Gamamura replied, "Though we don't have many, I can at least afford to use one secret treasure of the toads for Fukasaku. Step aside, every moment counts." Without further delay, Gamamura retrieved the secret treasure of the toads and inserted it into Fukasaku. Almost miraculously, the artifact began to heal Fukasaku, who had been on the brink of death. Fukasaku slowly opened his eyes, his hand instinctively moving to the wound that had almost claimed his life. He asked in disbelief, "Am I alive? Wasn't I supposed to be dead?" With joy in her voice, Shima exclaimed, "The great toad sage saved you by using the secret treasure of the toads." Fukasaku, overwhelmed, expressed his gratitude, "Thank you, great toad sage, for saving my life." Gamamura responded with a wise nod, "You've dedicated yourself to Mount Myaboku for so long, serving it faithfully. I couldn't let you die. After this battle with the boy, you still have the responsibility of looking after Mount Myaboku." As they witnessed this extraordinary spectacle of Fukasaku, who had been on the brink of death, returning to life, the others couldn't help but be astonished. Chapter 111. With astonishment came greed in the eyes of many who were present, especially Kage. He was infamous for his cunning and thieving ways, which had earned him notoriety among the other ninja villages. But amidst the crowd, one person coveted the talisman more than anyone else, Konan. She believed that if she could obtain this mysterious artifact, it might hold the key to healing Nagato properly, sparing him from a life of disability. Not only Konan, but even Kakashi had an idea cross his mind. He considered that if Guy were to utilize the 8 inner gates to its fullest, reaching the 8th gate, the Toad Sages could use the talisman to heal Guy completely at the moment of his death. However, this thought only lingered for a split second in his mind, and Kakashi promptly dismissed it, feeling guilty for contemplating such a thing about his best friend. Among the onlookers, many carried regrets in their hearts. They lamented not having this treasure in their possession, believing it could have saved their loved ones or friends, offering a ray of hope in desperate situations. The weight of their yearning for the talisman-like artifact hung heavy in the air. The most prominent individuals with these feelings were Obito and Kakashi, who remembered Rin, Nagato and Konan for Yahiko, Tsunade for Kato and Nawaki, Jiraiya and Kakashi for Minato and Kushina, Niji and Hayashi for Hisashi, and Guy for his father, Due. The people gathered here knew that Fukasaku was not dead, thanks to the sensory ninjas, and this was confirmed by Hayashi and Niji. They informed Tsunade that Fukasaku was still alive. Even if 1 second had passed before Gamamura used the artifact, Fukasaku would have been dead. At this moment, Gamamura and the other toads could clearly sense the greed in many of the people present. However, they were powerless to act on it because their priority was to save Fukasaku. Next, Gamamura said, "Fukasaku, Shima, and all others, step back. Fighting Juryoku will be futile for all of you. From here on, Sage Awayato and Sage Gamashiri will take over." Upon hearing Gamamura's words, Fukasaku immediately replied, "No, great Toad Sage. As long as we are alive, you don't need to fight. Fukasaku, I am not weak, and based on Juryoku's displayed strength until now, he is very powerful. You are not his match, and attempting to fight him would only be a futile sacrifice," Gamamura cautioned. Upon hearing Gamamura's words, Fukasaku and the others felt a profound sense of helplessness. After all, Gamamura was the great Toad Sage, one of the most formidable creatures in the ninja world. Gamamura, Gamashiri, and Awayato advanced, and Gamashiri, the tallest of the Toad Sages present, led the way. Observing this, one of the Jonin from Konoha who had survived the Nine-Tails rampage years ago, couldn't resist commenting, "The tallest toad among them is nearly as towering as the Nine-Tails that once wreaked havoc on Konoha." Other ninjas in attendance found themselves nodding in agreement. At that moment, Juryoku also rose to his feet, as expected by Gamamura. To everyone's astonishment, he appeared entirely unscathed, not a speck of dirt marring his body. Those aware of Juryoku's might weren't surprised by this development. Juryoku decided to test the defensive capabilities of these toad sages by executing a move known as the Gravity Blade, Raging Tiger. A massive, ferocious slash surged in the direction of Gamamura and the other two toad sages. Gamamura prepared to react but was held back by Gamashiri. Gamashiri asserted, "He used that attack to gauge our defenses. Let me handle this. I'll show him just how impenetrable my defense is." Gamamura nodded in agreement and refrained from countering Juryoku's attack. Gamashiri boldly leaped in front of the slashing force, and upon collision, a tremendous dust cloud enveloped the area. The sheer impact of the collision was evident, sending shudders through those who witnessed it. When the dust finally settled, Gamashiri emerged from the haze. The onlookers were left in sheer astonishment. The very same attack that had nearly claimed Gamasen's life with a single blow from Juryoku had failed to leave so much as a scratch on Gamashiri. In fact, Gamashiri remained steadfast, not having budged an inch from his original position. As Fukasaku observed the battle, he couldn't help but comment, "Sage Gamashiri's defense is nearly as unyielding as Diamond's." Coupled with his formidable sage mode, he appears almost impervious to such attacks. The onlookers, hearing these words, were left in awe of Gamashiri's remarkable defensive skills. Confident in his abilities, Gamashiri taunted, "Your attacks won't work on me. You can't penetrate my defense." Juryoku, however, remained unfazed. He shook his head and calmly responded, "So, you're quite sure of yourself? While I'd rather not shatter my opponent's confidence, if you believe that was my best attack, you're mistaken. You haven't even seen my true strength yet. I'm only using 70% of my power." After uttering these words, Juryoku tightly gripped his sword, armament Haki enveloping it. The surrounding gravity began to concentrate on the blade as he prepared to unleash a devastating strike. Gamamura, noticing the impending danger, quickly employed the frog kata technique, with Gamashiri as his intended target. Juryoku swung his sword down, gravity slash. Chapter 112, Gamashiri was sent hurtling through the air, struck by Gamamura's devastating frog kata. As Gamashiri grappled with the pain, a swift and unexpected turn of events unfolded. Juryoku swung his sword down with blistering speed, severing Gamashiri's right hand in a heartbeat. The sudden amputation left Gamashiri stunned, and he clenched his teeth in agony. His hand lay on the ground, still twitching as if it had a will of its own. Juryoku's attack had been a lightning-fast blur, and Gamashiri's diamond-like defense had utterly failed him, leaving a bitter taste of defeat in his mouth. The startling turn of events left Juryoku bewildered. He had fully expected to end Gamashiri's life, but reality had other plans. Moments before he executed his strike, he had glimpsed a vision through his observation Haki, future sight, where Gamashiri was cleaved in two. The present, however, painted a drastically different picture. Meanwhile, Gamamura leaped gracefully towards Gamashiri, landing beside him. Concern laced his voice as he inquired, "Are you all right, Sage Gamashiri?" Gamashiri, his pain eclipsed by the gravity of the situation, responded, "You struck me to position me out of harm's way, didn't you? To shield me from Juryoku's blow?" Gamamura nodded in confirmation. "Indeed. I glimpsed a future in which Juryoku's strike would cleave you in two. I couldn't allow that to happen." Gamashiri sighed, realizing his overconfidence had led to this predicament. "It appears I put too much trust in my defenses, and he looked toward Juryoku, delivered on his promise by shattering my confidence." Gamamura reassured him, "This isn't your fault. Your defenses are formidable, and I, too, believed you would remain unscathed. Juryoku intervened, his resolve unwavering. "Before I confronted you toads, I suspected you could glimpse the future for brief moments. It seems I was right. Gamamura explained, yes, you're right. But because of your own future sight ability, our predictions continually shift. It's nearly impossible to foresee precisely what's going to happen. Juryoku, his determination resolute, readied himself to strike Gamamura, stating, then it seems you should be my first target, great Toad Sage. However, before Juryoku could launch his assault, Awayato intervened, proclaiming, you won't find it so simple. He exhaled a blazing torrent of fire, an inferno that surged toward Juryoku. In response, Juryoku created a gravity barrier, effortlessly deflecting the flames away from himself. Unperturbed by the fiery assault, Juryoku prepared to continue his offensive against Gamamura. But just as he was about to strike, he felt an immense pressure bearing down on him from above. The force compressed him, leaving him immobilized and trapped in place. His attack halted abruptly. The assailant descending upon Juryoku from above was none other than Gamashiri. Just moments ago, Gamashiri, harnessing his natural chakra, had managed to staunch the bleeding from his amputated hand. He sprang into the air, positioning himself directly over Juryoku. With a swift motion, he executed the frog kata technique, unleashing a continuous compression of air upon Juryoku. Due to Gamashiri's massive frame and immense weight, the pressure on Juryoku intensified as he plummeted closer. Thanks to Gamashiri's massive frame and substantial weight, the pressure bearing down on Juryoku intensified exponentially as Gamashiri hurtled toward him. The magnitude of this pressure was astonishing, as evidenced by the crater that materialized beneath Juryoku's form, remarkably resembling the shape of Gamashiri's own leg, like that of a colossal toad. In addition to this, Juryoku's previously unyielding gravity barrier was left trembling in response to the unprecedented force. In an attempt to outmaneuver Gamamura's extraordinary future sight with his own impressive speed, Juryoku had refrained from employing his observation Haki, future sight up to this point. However, recognizing the impending danger, he countered Gamashiri's assault with his fearsome graviton pulse. Two concentrated pulses of gravity surged towards Awayato and Gamashiri. With Juryoku's gravitational onslaught redirected, the atmosphere began to shift. The graviton pulse wielded by Juryoku molded the very air itself, causing space to warp and fold as it surged toward Gamashiri and Awayato. In this critical moment, Gamamura, relying on his future sight, foresaw the calamity that would befall Gamashiri and Awayato if they were struck by this impending attack. He urgently bellowed, "Dodge this attack, both of you! Failure to do so will result in grievous injuries." In response to Gamamura's warning, both Awayato and Gamashiri swiftly altered their positions, skillfully evading Juryoku's devastating assault. The true extent of the attack's power was now apparent to all observers, as the ground in its path between Juryoku and Awayato was mercilessly torn asunder, creating a tumultuous and undulating landscape that extended over a considerable distance. By this point, all the Kages had been witness to Juryoku's formidable array of attacks, many of which possessed catastrophic area of effect capabilities capable of obliterating entire armies in an instant. Top of form. Fool! You're a fool! Ain't he excessively formidable? He's even mightier than you, Killer Bee exclaimed in his signature rapping style as he cast a discerning gaze toward Raikage. It's become apparent that the Kumogakure squad has been utterly decimated, and there's little they could have done to thwart him, Raikage responded somberly, his expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. It's clear he's no fool to recklessly assail Mount Maiboku. He possesses the strength to substantiate his audacity, Eight Tails interjected, his wisdom and insight shining through. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade wore expressions of deep concern. It was troubling that Juryoku had yet to unleash his mastery of Sage Mode. What was even more perplexing was the complete absence of exhaustion on Juryoku's countenance, despite the ongoing conflict. The tension among the onlookers grew as they pondered the extent of Juryoku's power and endurance. Chapter 113, Juryoku's smile illuminated the battlefield. As his lips curved upwards, an ethereal transformation began to unfold around him. A shroud of white smoke enveloped his form, accompanied by a cascade of crackling thunder, and his hair danced in the air amidst the enigmatic mist. At this very moment, Shikamaru couldn't help but crack a knowing grin. His gaze shifted to Ino, and he quipped, "It appears my suspicions were spot on. He's definitely developed quite the bad habit." Ino nodded in agreement, and Shikaku, who had been observing the scene, chimed in, "Indeed, it seems you've hit the mark. We've identified a peculiar tendency in Juryoku." Tsunade and the others were quick to catch wind of their cryptic conversation. Tsunade inquired, "You're referring to Juryoku, right? What kind of habit has he developed?" Shikaku took a moment to clarify. "Hokage-sama, Shikamaru watched Juryoku's battle with the Akatsuki closely. What he noticed was that Juryoku seems to have developed the habit of holding back." Tsunade, still puzzled, demanded further explanation. "I don't follow. Please elaborate." Shikaku glanced at his son, Shikamaru, who understood the unspoken request from his father. He continued, "What father means is that during his fight, Juryoku doesn't unleash his full power right from the start. He only exerts the strength he deems necessary to counter or defeat his opponent, and he'll escalate his efforts only when absolutely required." Understanding slowly dawned on those present. After analyzing Juryoku's battles with the toads, it became evident that he deliberately refrained from giving his all at the outset, choosing instead to gradually unleash his capabilities. For instance, he withheld his future-seeing ability until later in the fights. Tsunade frowned, displeased with this revelation. She turned to Shikaku and remarked, "This is indeed a bad habit. If we had known about it earlier, Juryoku might have been at a disadvantage." Shikamaru shook his head and offered a counterpoint. "Even if the toads were aware of this tendency, it wouldn't necessarily give them an advantage. Juryoku's caution doesn't equate to underestimating his foes. He maintains his full defensive capabilities throughout, as you've witnessed. So far, it seems nothing has been able to breach his formidable defenses. /N, before you criticize me regarding the reason I provided for Juryoku holding back, I would like to share something. Ishiki could have easily killed Naruto and Sasuke in a single shot, but he has a bad habit of toying with his enemies before finishing them off. The funny part is, he's aware of this habit, yet he refuses to change it. Similarly, Juryoku, who has never lost a fight, having this characteristic should not be a problem. I would appreciate it if those of you who are reading this could share your thoughts on the matter." Juryoku, cloaked in the swift chakra mode, vanished from his original position and materialized right in front of Awayato. His extraordinary speed didn't go unnoticed, and even the formidable Raikage couldn't hold back a remark, "He's faster than me, by far." The ninja of Kumogakure were equally astounded. After all, Raikage held the title of the fastest individual alive in their world. Before they could question how Juryoku had surpassed their leader in swiftness, they witnessed Juryoku's lightning-quick strike against Awayato. With a blinding flash, Juryoku's blade cut through Awayato. Although Gamamura had foreseen this attack, the ability to predict the future and the ability to react to it were two very different things. Juryoku's sword began its incision at Awayato's left shoulder. The speed of the attack left Awayato little room for reaction. He perceived Juryoku's presence but couldn't respond in time. Before he could make a move, Juryoku's strike landed with brutal efficiency. As Juryoku's sword inched closer to Awayato's belly, he executed a swift retreat. In that very moment, Gamamura reached the scene and launched a frog kata assault at Juryoku. Anticipating the future, Juryoku saw himself on the receiving end of the frog kata and expertly dodged the incoming attack. Gamamura positioned himself in front of Awayato, concern evident in his tone. "Sage Awayato, are you alright?" Awayato bore a deep and extensive gash across his body. The wound spanned from his front to his back, leaving no doubt that Juryoku's assault had cleaved through his entire being. "You arrived just in time. If that boy's attack had gone any further, I'd have been cleaved in half, without a doubt," Awayato gasped, racked with pain from the profound injury. Juryoku had no intention of allowing Gamamura any respite. He launched an immediate assault, and Gamamura, ever determined, swiftly advanced to meet Juryoku head-on. Despite Gamamura's resolve, Juryoku's superior speed brought him face to face with his adversary in a fraction of a second. He executed an attack of incredible speed, his sword closing in on Gamamira's neck. However, before Juryoku's blade could find its mark, it was forcefully repelled, and Juryoku himself was sent reeling backward. Juryoku, recovering from his surprise, remarked, "You can harness natural energy from any part of your body and employ it in your attacks. Your mastery over it is truly astonishing." "I'm pleased to hear that something can still catch you off guard," Gamamira retorted. In this tense moment, Juryoku sensed through his observation Haki that Gamashiri was closing in on Awayato, likely to provide assistance. Juryoku wasn't about to repeat the same mistake he made with Fukasaku. With swift determination, he took action. The ground beneath Awayato began to rise, and as the sage realized the imminent danger, he attempted to leap from the ascending chunk of earth. However, before he could make his escape, an enormous, surrounding mass of stone erupted from the ground, encasing Awayato in a web of solid earth. Chunks of earth rained down on Awayato from all directions, each one breaking free from the surrounding terrain. The injured sage let out a harrowing scream of agony, the sheer intensity of his pain evident in his voice as he cried out, "Ahhh." Chapter 114, Gamamira's heart filled with concern as he witnessed the perilous situation unfolding before him. He knew that if this continued, Awayato faced the risk of being sealed or worse, losing his life due to the excruciating pain he was enduring. Awayato was already grievously wounded after the onslaught by Juryoku, and his situation was growing dire. With a sense of urgency, Gamamira called out to Gamashiri and the other toads, his voice carrying a note of desperation, "Save Awayato before it's too late." Awayato had the option to retreat to Mount Maiboku for healing, but he chose to remain in this treacherous predicament, adhering to Gamamira's instructions. Gamamira permitted only those with serious, yet treatable injuries to return to Mount Maiboku. Awayato's condition was severe, to the point where his injuries were potentially life-threatening. Despite the immense pain he was enduring, he bravely waited, putting his trust in his fellow toads to rescue him from the brink of death. Gamashiri and the other toads leaped into action, immediately coordinating their efforts to save Awayato from his dire predicament. However, Juryoku was not about to let anyone else rescue Awayato. He swiftly moved to attack the injured sage, determined to prevent his escape. Gamamira, well aware of Juryoku's intent, made a strategic decision to create distance between himself and the relentless foe. Although he couldn't match Juryoku's speed, he relied on his ability to foresee the future to position himself effectively and intercept the oncoming threat. As Juryoku surged forward with incredible speed, Gamamira materialized in his path. In rapid succession, he launched 3 powerful punches, each packed with immense force. A solemn expression washed over Juryoku's face as he recognized the sheer power behind the strikes. Despite his ability to glimpse into the future, he could only evade one of the 3 punches, leaving him vulnerable to the other 2, whichever direction he chose to dodge, one to his left and the other to his right. Gamamira had executed a triple attack strategy, making it exceedingly difficult for Juryoku to evade all of the blows. Juryoku made the bold decision to confront Gamamira's attack head-on without veering in any direction. He shrouded his body with armament Haki and allowed Gamamira's fists to collide with the gravity barrier enveloping him. As the punch connected with the gravity barrier managed to withstand the force for only a fraction of a second before it crumbled under the immense pressure. The attack reached Juryoku's body directly, and the impact propelled him a considerable distance, dragging him for nearly 50 meters. Even though Juryoku employed his gravity control ability to slow himself down, the force was still substantial. While one of Gamamira's strikes successfully landed on Juryoku, the other 2 were far from wasted. They continued their relentless path at breakneck speed, causing destruction in their wake. The sheer velocity of these attacks made it nearly impossible for onlookers to track their trajectory. The individuals in immediate danger hailed from Awabakure and Kumogakure, as the 2 devastating attacks were hurtling in their direction. Among the few who could follow the path of the attacks were Inoki, the 3rd Tsuchikage of Awabakure, and Reikage A and Killer B from Kumogakure. Killer B boldly stepped forward to shield his fellow Kumogakure ninja, transforming into his A-Tails form and bracing for the impending impact. On the other side, Inoki readied himself to counter the threat with his formidable dust release technique. Drawing upon his extensive experience, he unleashed the dust release detachment of the primitive world technique. The invisible attack collided with Inoki's jutsu, resulting in the complete annihilation of the destructive force. However, the residual energy from the invisible attack struck Inoki and other Iwabikure ninja, sending them either flying or toppling to the ground. Simultaneously, Killer Bee, in his Eight Tails form, took the brunt of the invisible attack. Like a ragdoll, he was forcefully propelled over a significant distance, carving a substantial gully in the earth. The impact left a visible, gaping hole in Killer Bee's body, a testament to the overwhelming power behind Gamamura's attack. Eight Tails began to heal, and the gaping hole in its body gradually closed. Meanwhile, Inoki stood gasping for breath, visibly drained from expending a third of his chakra to counter Gamamura's attack. Kage swiftly moved to Killer Bee's side, and as the hole on the Eight Tails' body mended, Killer Bee reverted to his original form. Kage inquired with genuine concern, "Are you alright?" Killer Bee responded, his voice filled with a mix of pain and frustration, "Fool. You fool. I'm fine, but when I took that hit, it hurt like nothing else." Kage nodded, his gaze now directed at Gamamura. He questioned the Toad Sage, "Do you intend to eliminate us or neutralize the threat to Konoha, considering that you're allied with them?" Gamamura, still catching his breath after unleashing such a formidable attack, replied earnestly, "I apologize. It was not my intention." "Humph," Kage grunted in response. At this moment, Juryoku, who had recovered from the impact, stood tall. A trace of blood stained the corner of his mouth, which he swiftly wiped away with his finger. Before addressing Gamamura, he turned towards Kage and remarked with a hint of disdain, "If you're so feeble that you can't withstand the aftermath of this battle, you might as well leave. Weaklings like you don't deserve to witness the clash of the strong." Chapter 115, Kage found himself at a loss for words, unsure of how to counter Juryoku's pointed remarks. In the end, he remained silent, realizing the undeniable truth in what Juryoku had said. After all, it was their decision to engage in this battle, and they must accept the repercussions that came with it. Inoki, too, grasped the same reality and opted for silence, refraining from comment regarding the impact of Gamamura's attack. Gamashiri, keenly aware of the dire situation, materialized beneath the colossal, floating earth sphere that was steadily ascending into the atmosphere. This sphere now imprisoned Awayato, having been constructed from the torn and encrusted surroundings. Without hesitation, Gamashiri leaped into action, employing his immense strength and size to propel himself above the Earth's sphere. He aimed a powerful punch at the sphere's surface, but to his surprise, the tightly packed, broken pieces of Earth showed no signs of yielding. Juryoku's gravity manipulation was keeping Awayato securely sealed within, and the Earth sphere continued its ascent into the sky. Realizing that removing the Earth would not be an easy feat, Gamashiri opted for an alternative approach. He positioned himself atop the sphere, then executed the frog kata with every ounce of his strength. The moment the frog kata made contact with the Earth sphere, the upper sections of the Earth shattered into pulverized fragments, unveiling Awayato's skin from above. Gamashiri acted swiftly, retrieving a healing talisman and gently affixing it to Awayato's skin, allowing the sage to start healing immediately. This unique healing talisman had been crafted by the Sage of Six Paths, modeled after the principles of the secret treasure of the Toads. However, it possessed a key distinction. The secret treasure of the Toads was a single-use item that required a new one to be crafted for each use, while the Sage of Six Paths had devised a talisman capable of storing natural energy on its own, enabling indefinite usage. With Awayato on the mend, Gamashiri positioned himself above the Earth sphere and communicated to Awayato below, "Awayato, I'll be attacking from the outside, and you'll work from the inside to break free." Awayato, now rejuvenated and alert after receiving the healing, had been in a near unconscious state due to the intense pain inflicted by the Earth sphere's crushing embrace. With renewed determination, he braced himself for the collaborative effort. Gamashiri channeled his full strength and launched a relentless assault from the exterior of the Earth sphere. The stone surface showed signs of stress as cracks appeared under the force of his strikes. Simultaneously, Awayato exerted all his might from within the sphere, straining to escape his entrapment. Finally, when Awayato sensed that he could summon his innate ability, Fire Breath, he unleashed it. The Earth sphere's interior grew increasingly hot, and it reached a critical point where it resembled a pressure cooker about to explode. The sphere, already weakened by Gamashiri's relentless attack from the outside, eventually succumbed to the mounting heat and pressure, resulting in a spectacular detonation. The combined efforts of both Awayato and Gamashiri had effectively shattered the Earth sphere. The explosion sent Gamashiri hurtling towards the ground, while Awayato descended from the sky after escaping the shattered Earth sphere. Finally free from their ordeal, Awayato and Gamashiri quickly distanced themselves from the scene and regrouped with the other toads who had been watching the events unfold. Fukasaku, their fellow sage, inquired with concern, "Are you both all right, Sage Awayato and Sage Gamashiri?" Awayato replied, "Yes, I'm fine, but the impact of the explosion is causing me some pain right now." Gamashiri added, "I'm also fine. Once my hand is healed, I'll be in perfect shape." Fukasaku and the others nodded in understanding. They all fell silent as Juryoku concluded his conversation with Kage, leaving the atmosphere charged with anticipation and tension. Iwayato's escape from the Earth sphere didn't go unnoticed by Juryoku, but he chose not to comment on it. Instead, he turned to Gamamura and began a conversation, addressing the remarkable event that had just transpired. "You know, it's been years," Juryoku began. "From the moment I was born until now, no one has been able to injure me in a one-on-one battle. Of course, there's the fact that I've never fought anyone stronger than me, but even so, you should be proud that you've managed to injure me for the first time in my life in a one-on-one battle." Gamamura, recognizing the significance of his accomplishment, inquired, "You're quite skilled. Not only do you possess formidable defenses, but I also suspect that you've made your body flexible, similar to how Lady Katsuyu absorbs physical attacks by having a body that absorbs shock. Am I correct?" Juryoku confirmed with a nod and a hint of pride. "After all, I spent 3 years learning from her. If I couldn't even grasp this concept, why would I be her student? In my entire life, I've only had 2 teachers who taught me how to fight, my late father and Lady Katsuyu." Juryoku acknowledged Gamamura's exceptional skills with admiration. "You truly deserve to be the summoning beast of the Sage of Six Paths. I must say, you're an extraordinary force in one-on-one battles. No Kage is your equal, and I even doubt that multiple Kage could confront you, let alone defeat you." Chapter 116. Upon hearing Juryoku's acknowledgement, Gamamura couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He was well aware that Juryoku was far from finished and was likely preparing for a powerful move. Juryoku continued, expressing his strategy thus far. "You know, until now, I've been fighting with my strength in reserve," Juryoku explained. "I didn't want to waste my stamina, thinking that you might possess some potent artifact from the Sage of Six Paths. But it seems that I've been wasting my time. I assume you don't have anything bestowed by the Sage of Six Paths." Gamamura's face darkened, as he had foreseen the nature of Juryoku's next attack through his future sight ability. He knew it would be a formidable and extensive assault, with a range so vast that escape would be impossible. Unprepared, he'd likely face certain death. Gamamura opted to forego retreat and instead began gathering natural energy around him to create a defensive shield, covering his entire body. This shield was his only hope of withstanding Juryoku's impending onslaught. As Gamamura prepared his defense, the ground beneath him abruptly started descending. Juryoku had unleashed his gravity field, its radius encompassing an area of approximately 100 meters. Upon sensing this, ninjas from the other villages promptly retreated to avoid being caught within the gravity field's influence. Within the gravity field, everything within a 100-meter radius of Juryoku's position began to plummet. The immense spiritual pressure, that is Conqueror's Haki, was infused into the gravity field, amplifying its potency. The extent of the gravity field's strength became evident as the ground was compressed to a depth of nearly 100 meters. Gamamura struggled to remain upright, as the entire surrounding earth was pushed down, creating the scene of a colossal pit with a slender pillar on which Gamamura precariously stood. In stark contrast, Juryoku floated effortlessly, as this was his domain, and he reigned supreme within the gravity field. The sight of Juryoku's immense gravity field left Raikage A and the other onlookers in a state of horror. The power of this move was so overwhelming that it struck terror into their hearts. When considering the gravity field's sheer magnitude, they couldn't help but imagine what would have happened if there had been a large army of ninjas within its radius. In that case, they were convinced that not a single ninja would have survived, let alone thrived. They would have been crushed, much like a can underfoot. It was at this moment that the leaders of the major ninja villages began to truly comprehend their vulnerability in the face of Juryoku's might. They had been like larger ants in comparison to the colossal strength of Juryoku, capable of being eliminated at his whim. Pien turned to Itachi with a question: when Juryoku fought against us, did he employ such a move? Itachi replied, yes, he did use it, but the difference in the intensity of the attack is immense. Kisame added with a shudder, Mr. Itachi is absolutely right. Back then, although it was difficult, we could escape, but this is an entirely different scenario. I can't even fathom what would happen if I were to stand within that field. Although unspoken, the unifying sentiment among all present was that Juryoku was indeed a monstrous force in terms of strength. Juryoku addressed Gamamura with a chilling declaration: your future sight may have allowed you to evade my attacks numerous times, but now, there'll be no escape, not even with your future sight. Gamamura trembled under the unbearable weight of gravity that pressed down upon him. If it weren't for the protective shield of natural energy he had created around himself, he would have been helplessly crushed to the bottom of the massive pit formed by Juryoku's overwhelming gravity. Juryoku, not one to leave anything to chance, meticulously fortified his sword with armament Haki. He concentrated the gravity within his blade and enshrouded it with Conqueror's Haki. With these preparations complete, Juryoku moved at an extraordinary speed and suddenly materialized in front of Gamamura. In the midst of his attack, Juryoku failed to notice a peculiar phenomenon occurring around his blade. The space surrounding the blade was distorted, and upon closer examination, it appeared as though the very fabric of space itself was being cut. This extraordinary development did not escape the watchful eyes of Orochimaru. At that moment, Orochimaru's expression bore a mix of disbelief and intense satisfaction, as though he were experiencing a euphoric revelation of unprecedented magnitude. Orochimaru's regret was palpable as he muttered, I wish I had implanted my curse mark on Juryoku's body. His power has surged to such an extent. Sasuke, standing on the sidelines, clenched his fists in frustration after witnessing the incredible strength of Juryoku. When he had left Orochimaru's hideout to observe Juryoku's battle, he had anticipated a significant gap in their strength, but he had never expected to be so far behind. Just like in his childhood, Juryoku still seemed like an insurmountable mountain. Amidst the contemplations and regrets of those watching, Juryoku's sword closed in on Gamamura. It first made contact with the natural chakra barrier that Gamamura had erected as a protective shield. To the astonishment of all, this shield of natural chakra couldn't withstand Juryoku's assault for even a fraction of a second. Juryoku's sword sliced through the shield as easily as a knife cutting through butter. As the blade reached Gamamura's shoulder, the sage suddenly vanished from sight. Chapter 117, Gamamura, who had disappeared, suddenly reappeared next to Fukasaku. The reason for Gamamura's disappearance became apparent. Fukasaku had used the summoning technique to call Gamamura to his side. As Gamamura shouted, "No," and appeared before Fukasaku, others assumed it was due to the injuries he had sustained from Juryoku. They anticipated he was reacting to the pain of those injuries. However, the true reason for Gamamura's cry was different. He had witnessed a future before Fukasaku summoned him, and that future had now come to pass. The head of Awayato and the upper part of Gamashiri's body, above the chest, lay on the ground. The other toads from Mount Myaboku were in shock, shouting, "Sage Awayato! Sage Gamashiri!" Fukasaku, his face twisted in anguish over the deaths of Gamashiri and Awayato, asked in pain, "How did this happen?" Juryoku muttered to himself, full of regret and anger over his failure to kill Gamamura. But he had a realization: he had cut through space. Did I finally cut through dimensions? Juryoku wondered. Then, in a fit of laughter, he proclaimed, "Haha, yes, I've finally mastered the dimension slash. I've been working so hard to master this for ages." Haha. As Juryoku laughed, the effects of the gravity field were lifted, and he gradually calmed down. He began to address the toads. "I must say, you toads constantly surprise me. You are truly clever. You could have used the summoning technique to free Awayato from the Earth Sphere's seal, but instead, you saved the summoning technique for a dire situation involving Gamamura." Juryoku's voice grew colder with each word as he continued, "You know what I think? I believe I fell into your trap. By having all the toads come here, you assess my strength. If you truly faced difficulty defeating me, you could have just retreated and abandoned Mount Maiboku. You toads played me brilliantly." Juryoku's laughter seemed to mock the deaths of Awayato and Gamashiri. Fukasaku, filled with anger, retorted, "How dare you mock the deaths of Sage Awayato and Sage Gamashiri?" Juryoku, however, clarified, "I am not mocking them. They should have died in the first place, but they survived thanks to the intervention of your great toad sage, Gamamura. Now, things will be different. I will not spare any of you." A heavy silence fell over the spectators, each of them contemplating that the toads were now in grave danger. Witnessing the destructive power of the gravity field, doubt spread through their minds about whether the toads could survive this ordeal. At that moment, Jiraiya, his eyes reddened from grief and anger, turned towards Tsunade and implored, "Tsunade, now is the time for Konoha to support Mount Maiboku and save them." Tsunade remained composed as she responded, "I am sorry, Jiraiya, but I am a Hokage, and I must prioritize the interests of Konoha." She continued, "The reason I initially chose to support Mount Maiboku was that, while Juryoku is indeed a monster, but with the cooperation of ninja and toads we can win against Juryoku, but his strength exceeds what Konoha can confront. What I fear is that even if I were to call upon the entire Konoha ninja army, they would undoubtedly meet their demise." Jiraiya, looking perplexed, questioned Tsunade, "Tsunade, you were ready to stand with Mount Maiboku as an ally, but now you're retracting your support?" Tsunade explained with a composed demeanor, "As much as it pains me to say this, it's the reality." Observe Juryoku closely. Even after employing these devastating techniques, he appears somewhat winded, as if he had completed a sprint. He's not exhausted, and his power remains substantial. I believe he can continue to fight. She turned towards Hayashi and instructed, "Hayashi, inform him of Juryoku's condition." Hayashi nodded and reported, "From the beginning of the battle until now, Juryoku has barely utilized his chakra. He is nearly at his peak in terms of chakra." Tsunade continued, "Furthermore, he has yet to activate his Sage mode." "Jiraiya, my response is clear. If you want to support Mount Maiboku, it's not an issue, and I will join you. However, the Konoha ninjas will not be sent to their certain deaths." Jiraiya fell into deep contemplation, torn between his desire to assist and the knowledge that the safety of Konoha's ninjas took precedence. At this moment, Gamamura, his face etched with pain, whispered, "I'm sorry, my friend, that I have to disturb you from your eternal slumber." He then performed the summoning technique, causing a mysterious coffin to rise from the ground and appear before everyone. The appearance of the coffin left everyone bewildered, including Juryoku, who watched with curiosity. They continued to observe as Gamamura gently placed his hand above the coffin, causing it to emit a vibrant green light. Gradually, from a circular pattern above the coffin, a phantom figure materialized. The phantom was that of a man with pale skin, possessing two Rinnegan eyes and distinct red Rinnegan-like markings on his forehead. He also had two horn-like protrusions on either side of his forehead, and behind him, 10 truth-seeking balls floated in the air. He donned a full-length kimono adorned with a pattern of 6 black magatama encircling a high collar. Upon witnessing this apparition, Obito uttered in shock, "Sage of 6 Paths." Black Zetsu, catching sight of the Sage of 6 Paths, immediately panicked and scurried away, vanishing into the ground to escape from the unfolding situation. Chapter 118. While Obito's reaction was one of considerable shock, the others in attendance, who may not have been as well informed, didn't display the same level of surprise. However, as the Kages and more knowledgeable ninjas took in the appearance of the figure and, particularly, his distinctive eyes, they swiftly deduced that they were in the presence of the legendary Sage of Six Paths. "Is that the legendary Sage of Six Paths?" inquired Raikage, seeking confirmation. To affirm this, Eight Tails responded, "Indeed, he is the Sage of Six Paths, the one who created me and the other tail beasts." Kurama, who resided within Naruto, also grew agitated and questioned, "How has the old man appeared here? Has he been reincarnated?" Sensing Ninetail's agitation, Naruto asked, "Hey, Stinky Fox, do you know this old man?" Ninetails, discontent with Naruto's informal reference, retorted, "Quiet, boy. He is the creator of all of us, a fatherly figure to us tailed beasts, and is known to humans as the Sage of Six Paths." Hearing Ninetail's explanation, Naruto scratched his head, showing his usual curiosity. He inquired, "Really? By the way, who is this Sage of Six Paths?" Naruto's question was audible to those around him, prompting Tsunade to speculate about his conversation. She asked, "Naruto, did Ninetails say something to you just now?" Naruto confirmed, "Yes, he mentioned that the old man over there is the Sage of Six Paths who created all the tailed beasts." He pointed towards Hagoromo to emphasize his point. Upon learning this, the others were taken aback. Jiraiya, however, appeared pleased and exclaimed, "If that's truly the Sage of Six Paths, we need not be concerned about Mount Myaboku." Not everyone shared Jiraiya's optimism, though. Ino Shikacho, who had a close relationship with Juryoku, felt apprehensive. While they were unsure of Hagoromo's strength, they did recognize that the Sage of Six Paths was the creator of all the tailed beasts, which were akin to nuclear weapons in the ninja world. They couldn't fathom just how powerful Hagoromo might be. In a concerned tone, Ino couldn't help but mutter, "Juryoku." Pain observed, and while touching his eyes he said, "These are the same eyes as his." Conan nodded in agreement. Orochimaru, overwhelmed by regret for missing the chance to study Juryoku's strength, looked at the Sage of Six Paths with an almost manic obsession. He couldn't wait to uncover the mysteries hidden within the sage's body, but he also recognized the futility of attempting anything against the person who could easily overpower him. After all, someone with just the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths had crushed his ambitions, let alone the sage himself. The scene shifted to the location where Gamamura had summoned the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo. Gamamura, with tears in his eyes, expressed his deep apologies. "I am truly sorry, my friend. Because of me, your afterlife has been disturbed. Mount Myaboku is now on the verge of destruction." Hagoromo, his eyes filled with surprise, inquired, "But how is that possible? Your strength is formidable, and the other toads are powerful as well. How could it come to this?" With a solemn expression, Gamamura briefly recounted the dire situation, aware that he had to be concise due to Hagoromo's limited time in this form. Hagoromo expressed his weariness with a sigh, saying, "Sigh. This cycle of revenge is truly endless." He then gazed at Awayato and Gamashiri and asked, "Weren't they present when I first arrived at Mount Myaboku?" Gamamura nodded in response to Hagoromo's question. Hagoromo remained silent on this matter, deep in thought. He then turned his attention to the Konoha ninjas, specifically to Ninetails, Kurama, and greeted him, "Kurama, it's nice to see you after so long." Kurama smiled and made a request to Naruto, "Boy, don't resist for a moment. I'd like to manifest my form." Naruto was initially wary but asked, "You promise you won't cause any trouble, right?" Kurama assured him, "No, I won't, especially in front of the old man, whom I consider as a father." Naruto nodded and informed Tsunade, "I'm loosening the seal a bit." Tsunade acknowledged his decision, and with the loosening of the seal, Kurama's face emerged. Kurama greeted Hagoromo, saying, "It's been so long since I saw you, old man." Hagoromo nodded in acknowledgement and then addressed Kyuki, "You seem to be doing well, and it looks like you've found a good friend." Gyuki also manifested in a similar manner, revealing only his mouth, and responded, "I'm happy to see you after all this time." Hagoromo observed, "I can't sense quite a few of your siblings, it seems events have already begun." As his gaze shifted, Hagoromo looked in the direction of Pain, Obito, and Nagato. Nagato, who was relatively distant, broke into a cold sweat, sensing that Hagoromo wasn't merely looking at Pain but directly at him. Hagoromo, addressing Kurama, continued, "Kurama, I always believed that someday you would find someone who can truly understand you. So, my request to you is to try and build a friendly relationship with your host." Kurama remained silent in response and didn't offer any comments. Hagoromo then turned his attention to Naruto and said, "Naruto, I can't fully comprehend what you've been through, but one thing I can say for sure is that Kurama may appear tough on the outside, but deep down, he's quite gentle. You'll come to know that when you take the time to get to know him better." Chapter 119, Naruto nodded after hearing Hagoromo's words. While he recognized the wisdom in what the legendary figure said, Naruto couldn't help but remain conflicted, given the suffering he had endured at the hands of the Nine Tails. His relationship with the tailed beast was complicated, to say the least. Hagoromo, understanding Naruto's inner turmoil, remained silent and didn't push the matter further. Finally, Hagoromo turned to Juryoku and inquired, "Are you the Juryoku Mura spoke of?" Juryoku responded confidently, "Absolutely, and I presume you are the Sage of Six Paths because there's only one person whom the Great Toad Sage refers to as friend, and the same goes for Kurama and Gyuki when they call someone old man. That person is you, Sage of Six Paths, right?" Hagoromo acknowledged this with a nod. Juryoku, seemingly unimpressed, continued, "So what brings you here? Planning to fight me?" "Because I highly doubt that." Hagoromo replied, "Certainly not for fighting. I can sense that you are descended from Hamura, with blood closely connected to his lineage. Why go to such extremes over words you might have spoken in anger? Engaging in this battle, especially given your incredible power, is a waste. There are greater uses for your strength, this world will need it." Juryoku responded calmly, "Maybe, but who cares? I'm a man of my word, and I didn't utter those words impulsively. I thought it through. What I was doing was seeking revenge, and they interfered. I warned them, but they paid no heed. Back then, they believed we of Mount Myaboku were more than capable of handling him, but today, when I launched my attack, they all come running to persuade me not to go through with it." Hagoromo continued, "So you're resolute in your decision not to relent on your assault against Mount Myaboku?" Juryoku affirmed, "My words make it clear." Hagoromo cautioned, "Reconsider," but at that moment, a massive surge of chakra erupted from his phantom form, causing the earth in the vicinity to crack. The chakra was so dense that it became visible to everyone present, moving like a powerful wave toward Juryoku. Not one to back down, Juryoku released his conqueror's Haki, emanating a purplish wave that traveled in the direction of Hagoromo's chakra wave. The two forces clashed in a titanic display of power. As the auras of Juryoku and Hagoromo collided, all onlookers had to retreat, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the power on display. An interesting phenomenon occurred during this clash. The release of Juryoku's and Hagoromo's auras caused the sky to become shrouded in dark clouds. However, at the point of collision between their auras, the ground was ripped asunder, and the dark clouds in the sky were sliced in half, seemingly compelled to retreat from the collision point. The line of impact formed an invisible boundary, potent enough to shred any Jonin or lower-ranked ninja to pieces. The standoff persisted for a brief moment. Hagoromo's chakra was undeniably formidable, surpassing the Conqueror's Haki unleashed by Juryoku. As a result, the Conqueror's Haki began to recede under the overwhelming force of Hagoromo's chakra. Juryoku, however, was resolute and refused to yield. With his Conqueror's Haki, he activated his gravity field, ultimately managing to push back against Hagoromo's chakra. Once again, the two forces reached a tense stalemate. Hagoromo's intention was solely to test the extent of Juryoku's strength and see how well he could withstand his power. Once he had accomplished his objective, Hagoromo withdrew his chakra from in front of Juryoku, and Juryoku followed suit. However, once Juryoku had dispelled his conqueror's Haki and gravity field, he was left panting heavily, a testament to the overwhelming power of Hagoromo's released chakra. This display illustrated just how formidable Hagoromo's chakra truly was. The power discrepancy made Juryoku contemplate how awe-inspiring Hagoromo must have been at the peak of his abilities, especially during his time as the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Hagoromo commented, "You possess great power, but I've noticed that you don't rely much on chakra in battle. Instead, you use your physical stamina. While using physical stamina does consume some chakra, it's indeed negligible." In response to Hagoromo's words, Juryoku remained silent. He was well aware that Hagoromo had no intention of engaging in combat, as he needed to conserve his energy for the inevitable moment when Kaguya, his mother, would be resurrected. Finally, Juryoku suggested, "If you have no intention of fighting, I recommend you leave and send your son to face me." Hagoromo responded with a hint of curiosity, "How did you know that the person I would send to face you is my son?" Juryoku had a strong hunch about the identity of the person in the coffin, as only someone possessing the chakra of Ashura or Indra could manifest Sage of Six Paths. And Juryoku highly doubted that the person inside was Indra. It was more likely to be Ashura. Not receiving a response from Juryoku regarding his query, Hagoromo suspected that Juryoku's extensive knowledge might be attributed to his extraordinary ability to glimpse into the future. With that thought in mind, he returned to his previous location and laid his hand on the coffin. Chapter 120. Upon Hagoromo's hand resting on the coffin, the container began to emanate a brilliant green radiance. Mere seconds later, the ornate gate of the coffin swung open, revealing a man in his early 30s. The presence of this unknown individual left everyone present in a state of perplexity, for the existence of the Sage of Six Paths' sons had remained shrouded in obscurity, their names absent from the annals of history. With eyes now wide open, the man spoke, "Father, you have summoned my soul from the Pure Land. It appears that Mount Myaboku is under a dire threat." Hagoromo acknowledged his son's observation with a solemn nod and replied, "You are absolutely correct, Ashura. I have called upon you to safeguard Mount Myaboku. Through my creation of all things technique, I have restored your youth, bestowing upon you the strength to counter the aggressor who seeks to annihilate the sanctity of Mount Myaboku." Ashura, having grasped the gravity of the situation, cast his gaze upon Juryoku. He was privy to all the events transpiring around him, as his father had employed the Rinnegan's Jinjutsu to convey the situation in mere moments. Hagoromo, emphasizing the limits of this unique revival, added, "Always bear in mind, Ashura, that once your chakra is fully depleted, you will be automatically returned to the Pure Land." Ashura nodded with the knowledge that his father's Rinnegan ability allowed for a temporary resurrection from the dead, where the individual's chakra would burn until exhaustion, ultimately leading them back to the Pure Land. Following this, Hagoromo made his departure from the scene, leaving Ashura to address the gathered individuals. Ashura, while shifting his attention towards Gamamura, expressed his concern, saying, "Great Toad Sage, it is advisable for you to retreat from this immediate vicinity. The impending battle may escalate to levels of destructive force that could compromise your safety." Gamamura acknowledged the warning and replied, "We shall indeed withdraw to a safer distance, but we bear witness to this confrontation for a reason. Our losses at the hands of Juryoku are numerous, and it is our solemn wish to witness his ultimate defeat." Understanding the gravity of their intent, Ashura nodded and consented, saying, "Very well, then. Retire to a secure location." Turning his gaze to the assembled ninja from various villages, Ashura issued a similar directive, "To all those gathered here from various regions, I implore you to withdraw as well. The forthcoming clash will prove catastrophic, and the risk to your well-being is considerable. In the aftermath, injury or worse could befall you." Receiving this counsel, every individual complied promptly, fully aware of the formidable power standing before them. They comprehended the imperative to exercise caution, recognizing Ashura as the son of Sage of Six Paths. In a final turn to Juryoku, Ashura expressed a hint of regret, stating, "I would have preferred to avoid a confrontation over mere words, my friend. It seems you are driven by a fervent desire for battle, a true aficionado of combat." Juryoku, while locked in this pivotal moment, felt compelled to clarify his motivations. With a sigh, he began, "Many folks argue that my attack on Mount Myaboku, fueled by a solemn vow to obliterate it, is merely a facade designed to satiate my desire for battles against formidable adversaries. However, allow me to clarify one key point. I am not the protagonist of some narrative, where an author may conveniently forget the oath I made. I pledged to destroy Mount Myaboku, and I am no protagonist who can be swayed by the charms of a beguiling female character, no matter how captivating they may be. If that were the case, I'd have been manipulated countless times before. My ultimate reason for assaulting Mount Myaboku is rooted in a far more substantial cause. The driving force behind my actions is the need to shatter the foundation of their unwavering ego. They've always known that any who dared assail Mount Myaboku would have to confront the formidable Jiraiya, the revered Toad Sage, and even the mighty Konoha, the powerhouse among ninja villages. Moreover, they possess the ace up their sleeve, the support of the Sage of Six Paths himself. I aim to dismantle this towering ego, and, of course, they must bear the consequences of dismissing my warnings. Total annihilation, Juryoku declared with unwavering conviction, his countenance remaining stoic and resolute. Ashura, realizing the futility of attempting to persuade Juryoku, sighed with resignation. He comprehended that convincing Juryoku was a lost cause. With astonishing agility, Ashura vanished from view, materializing right before Juryoku. He thrust his fist decisively toward Juryoku, illustrating his commitment to this confrontation. Juryoku, however, held no intentions of taking this clash lightly. On the contrary, he regarded it with the utmost seriousness. Employing his extraordinary observation Haki, future sight, Juryoku detected the impending strike with uncanny foresight. He precisely foresaw the trajectory of Ashura's attack and executed a swift sidestep, positioning himself to deliver a sidelong punch at Ashura. Yet Ashura was no pushover. He had keenly observed Juryoku's movements. Beneath his left hand, a secondary hand materialized, composed entirely of chakra, primed for combat. With impeccable timing, Ashura's chakra-infused hand swiftly counteracted Juryoku's punch. Ashura's chakra hands bore immense strength. In the past, he had demonstrated their might while facing his older brother, Indra, effectively parrying the relentless assaults of Indra's formidable Susanoo. Juryoku's punch, ensconced in armament Haki, internal destruction, proved sufficient to dismantle Ashura's chakra hand as soon as Juryoku's punch hit the chakra hand of Ashura. However, Ashura's genuine, unassisted hands remained free and ready to strike. In a swift, fluid motion, Ashura thrust his fist toward Juryoku, propelling him backward with a force akin to a rocket, causing him to collide unceremoniously with the earth. The resounding impact left an indelible mark on the battlefield, echoing the uncompromising intensity of their skirmish. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next upload.